Hello, everybody. Hello. Let me just open this up then. View on YouTube. Let me give myself a like. That's it, 4 likes. So we're here. Hey. Deb's here. Heather's here. Cheating Stacey's here. Lazy Die's here. Rhode Island Deb's here. Katie's here. Robin's here. I'm not Swifty. So what it is, so you got to set it all up in StreamYard. You then got to amend the settings in YouTube. You then got to create a fresh thumbnail, upload the thumbnail. So that's why it's a faff more than anything. Hello, Crystal. Hello to you, Tim. Right. So the plan is we're going to watch this for however long we can today. And then what we're going to do, because we're going to zoom this, and then tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, we're going to do closing arguments for the Zachary trial, unless it's we're going to do it anyway, even if it's a verdict tonight. And then tomorrow we'll continue to watch this, and then next week we'll be covering the other trial. If you trust me, just trust me. Thank you, Josie. Pin message. Please, right, there's 30 people here, only 9 likes, 10 likes now, so please like the stream, it really does help. No, I've not changed my shirt. Thank you, Lazy. Thank you, Sass. I'll do that. Right, and then let's get this trial going then. Let's not fuck about. Let's get it going. Never trust a man that says trust me. Trust me, I'll last longer than 2 minutes. Trust me. Always a lie. 2 minutes is too long. Thank you, Crystal. Let me get the stream up here. Hey, Kelly. Right. I think this is day 1. I see little spurts, yeah. Hey, that's Josie. Fuck about and find out. Got jokes. Just talk from experience, Kelly. Right, let's do this. Present. Yes, you've got a wedding to plan, Crystal. You're right. Right. Not sure. Deb is here. Fine. I'm going to boost this for Deb, as always. And then play it. And as we said, fuck. Hang on. Oh, yeah. Justice for Dexter. So, is it Dexter? Fuck. I'll just do that and then put it in the... Right, I'll start, people. I am going to go and get my dinner and then I'll be back. So I'll be offline, but I'm here. I got lasagna and vegetables, so I just need to go and heat it up quickly and be back. Right, here we go.
The evidence code. Except that otherwise permitted in 90.702, a witness may not testify to a matter unless evidence is introduced which is sufficient to support a finding that the witness has personal knowledge of the matter. Evidence to prove personal knowledge may be given by the witness's own testimony. So the fact that they're going to be called here to say, hey, do you have any knowledge of this case? Do you know about this dog, et cetera, and they're going to answer in the negative, that would be against the evidence code, and that would lead the jury, put them in a position where they're going to infer guilt based upon someone's lack of information in this case, especially someone very close to the defendant, such as his family members. In regards to the elderly gentleman, which if you see him, he has a face mask. He's barely audible. I believe he also has some hearing issues. I don't believe he's competent to testify. And that's based upon 90.603 disqualification of a witness. And so in all, generally speaking, what the state is trying to do is say, hey, look, we're going to bring these witnesses and we're going to establish that they did nothing. And I don't expect anybody to take the stand in a case like this and admit to doing something like this to the dog. So they're getting this negative proposition and saying, hey, because these people are going to say that they didn't do it, the defendant must have done it. I believe that's unfair prejudice. That's going to conflate the issues, confuse the jury, and it's going to be an unfair, prejudicial inference that's not based upon substantive evidence. It's going to be based upon a negative, and I don't believe that that's permissible in this case. And that's the only reason that the state is intending to call the defendant's family members in this case.
Thank you, Ms. Beltran.
It's going to be Mr. Miller.
Mr. Millen?
Yes, Your Honor. So as for the character evidence argument, the state's not intending to ask any questions about good character, bad character. It's simply the facts of this case. The witnesses that we have out there are people that we believe were staying at the same house or location as Mr. Rodriguez, people who had access to Dexter, the dog in this case, people who potentially might have been ones who caused him harm. What we're doing is excluding them as potential suspects for the jury. So we're not going to ask any questions about could Mr. Rodriguez have ever done this? We're not going to ask them questions about have you ever harmed an animal before, other than for the facts of this case, did you harm an animal in this case? That's the extent of the questions that we're going to ask them. So it's not really a character evidence argument, it's really based on the facts of this case. And then as for, I did not personally speak with the father or grandfather in this case, so I can't talk about.
Ms. Beltran, did you speak to the grandfather?
I did, Your Honor. He was able to answer all my questions coherently and appropriately. I don't have complicated questions for him, so at this point, I think that it sounds like it's more of a weight, not admissibility issue.
And he's the father of the defendant or the defendant's spouse?
Spouse, but he's living in the home with them.
Okay. Any rebuttal argument?
Yes, Your Honor. I don't believe it's, obviously I should have said this earlier, but I believe it's this court's authority to determine if a witness is competent to testify or not. So in regards to him, depending upon what you rule on the other witnesses, I'd ask that his testimony be proffered outside the presence of the jury, and this court make the determination whether he should be placed before the jury and be given testimony.
All right, the court will grant that request, deny the rest of the motion, and we will put the grandfather on after these other witnesses, and we'll give the jury a break and we'll do a proffer. The court will give a ruling as to the grandfather, but the rest of the motion is denied. Anything else before we bring in the jury?
Yes, Your Honor. Please let me know if this is premature so I could reserve for a later time. We anticipate, based upon the evidence that we've received and the state's opening statement, that they're going to be eliciting inconsistent statement from the defendant. Our position is that based upon case law, prior inconsistent statements can't be used as substantive evidence, and this court must give a limiting instruction to the jury to not consider that as substantive evidence. I have authority. You have 2 second DCA cases which stand for that proposition. I could continue with that now, or do you want me to wait before they start to get to the
I'd like you
elicitation?
to submit the cases to the court as well as the state, and then we'll pick that up later when it becomes necessary.
Yes, sir. Let the record reflect I'm providing both cases to the state. The first case is going to be State v. McReynolds. That is, I have a LexisNexis site. It's 2025 Florida, Pellet Lexus 446, 50 Florida Law Weekly D231. The Westlaw site is 258922. That's the second DCA case, hot off the press, January 22nd, 2025. And then the second case is also a second DCA case, Smith v. State. That's 880 Southern 2nd, 730, second DCA 2004. I provided physical copies. Also have a copy for Your Honor if you want me to approach.
Yes, I'd like physical copies, and then we will address this later on when it becomes necessary.
And obviously, it goes without saying, my client, it needs the interpreter. There have not been interpreting for this motion, and let me, so I'll waive his presence for the motions that I presented to the court. May I approach?
Yes, please. Thank you. All right. So anything else to address? State or defense?
Nothing from the state at this time.
Nothing from the defense.
Madam's interpreter, I should say, would you please both stand and raise your right hand? Do you both swear or affirm that to the best of your ability will translate everything that happens in this courtroom today in languages that everyone understands? My understanding is we'll be using the Spanish and English languages. Do you both swear or affirm to do that?
Yes, Your Honor. I do.
Thank you. Would you please put your appearances on the record?
Laura Alton, court certified Spanish interpreter.
And Danielle Berry, court certified Spanish interpreter.
Thank you, ladies. Have a seat. Let's bring in the jury.
I had a question about that, Your Honor. Which one, your number one, how are these?
Not any member of the jury is aware of any violation of the court's.
Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do.
Aquí, por favor. Just have a seat. Speak aloud.
And please bring the interpreter a chair if she needs one. You may proceed.
Good morning.
Buenos días.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury,
Puede presentarse al jurado
spelling your first and last name for the court reporter?
y deletree su nombre y su apellido para que conste en el acta.
Mi nombre es Neslene Conde Martínez.
My name is Neslene Conde Martinez.
And would you mind spelling that, please, for the record?
Por favor, deletréelo para que conste en el acta.
N-E-S-L-N-E.
Neslene.
Yes.
Yes. Neslene.
All right. Is it Miss Martinez or Conde Martinez? What do you
Su nombre es
prefer?
Conde Martinez.
Conde Martínez.
Conde Martinez.
Miss Conde Martinez, well, let me ask you, are you related to anybody here in this courtroom today?
Permítame preguntarle, ¿está usted relacionada con alguien que está presente en la sala de tribunal hoy aquí?
Sí.
Yes.
Specifically, somebody named Domingo Rodriguez.
Específicamente alguien llamado Domingo Rodríguez.
Sí.
Yes.
And can you indicate by explaining where he is in the courtroom and identifying an article of clothing that
Okay.
Mr. Rodriguez is wearing?
Puede usted indicar, señalando hacia el lugar de la sala de tribunal, indicando una prenda de vestir que lleva puesto el señor Domingo Rodríguez.
El saco azul.
The blue jacket.
And I'm sorry, could you just be a little more specific? We have multiple people wearing blue jackets.
Hay muchas personas que llevan saco azul. ¿Puede usted ser más específica?
Tiene la camisa azul también. La
Yes, wait.
corbata azul con lista.
He's wearing a blue shirt and he's wearing a blue tie.
And is he to your left or to your right in the courtroom?
Se encuentra él a su derecha o a su izquierda en la sala de
A
tribunal.
mi derecha.
To my right.
It has that the record reflect that the witness has
Que
identified
conste en
the
acta
defendant.
que el
Defense.
testigo ha identificado al
Record
acusado.
so
La
reflect
defensa está de
important
acuerdo,
identification.
conste en el acta que se ha realizado la identificación.
Do you live with the defendant?
¿Vive usted con el acusado?
Sí.
Yes.
And where is that located? Where's your home address?
¿Y dónde es eso? ¿Dónde se encuentra su dirección de habitación?
En la 3367, 66 Way North, San Petersburg, 33710.
337.
10.
At 3367 66 West Way, St. Petersburg, Florida 33710.
To your knowledge, is that located in Pinellas County?
¿Sabe usted, según lo que conoce, si se encuentra ubicado en el condado de Pinellas?
Sí.
Yes.
Were you living at that location in May 2024?
¿Vivía usted en ese lugar en mayo de 2024?
Sí.
Yes.
At that time, was Domingo Rodriguez, the defendant, also living with you there?
Y en ese momento se encontraba también el acusado Domingo Rodríguez viviendo allí con usted?
Sí.
Yes.
Did you learn that your husband, the defendant, adopted a dog in May of 2024?
¿Se enteró usted de que su esposo, el acusado, adoptó a un perro en mayo de 2024?
Sí.
Objection.
Yes.
Hearsay.
Objeción,
Sustain the objection
testimonio
to
de oídas,
hearsay.
al lugar, por testimonio de oídas.
Did you see a dog at your home?
¿Vio usted un perro en su casa?
Sí.
Yes.
Who brought that dog home?
¿Quién trajo ese perro a casa?
Domingo.
Domingo.
Permission to approach the clerk?
Granted.
¿Permite hablar con mi secretaria? Concedido.
Permission to approach the witness?
Granted.
Permiso para acercarme a la testigo.
I'm showing what's
Concedido.
been pre-marked, and defense counsel does have a copy for the
Le
record.
estoy mostrando lo que se ha marcado previamente
Pre-marked for identification as states Exhibit 1.
como prueba de la Fiscalía número 1 para identificación.
Do you recognize what is depicted in this photo?
¿Reconoce usted lo que se muestra en esta fotografía?
El perro lo veo muy oscuro.
The dog, I say it looks a little bit dark, very dark.
Se parece bastante en la fisonomía.
It looks a lot physically like the dog.
Do you know the dog's name?
¿Sabe usted el nombre del perro?
Derek.
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 Derek,
Real quick, clerk.
¿me permite acercarme al secretario? Concedido.
Ms. Conde Martinez, is English your first language?
Señora Conde Martínez, ¿es el inglés su primer idioma?
No.
No.
Is it possible that the dog's name was Dexter?
¿Es posible que el nombre del perro fuese Dexter?
No sé, yo no sé pronunciar muy bien los nombres.
I don't know. I don't know how to pronounce the names very well.
Did you ever meet the dog that your husband brought home?
¿Conoció usted alguna vez el perro que su esposo trajo a casa?
Sí, lo vi cuando llegó a la casa.
Yes, I saw it when he got home.
Did you ever see the dog being aggressive?
¿Alguna vez vio usted que el perro fuese agresivo?
No,
No.
estaba tranquilo.
It was calm.
Did you later learn that the dog had passed away?
Luego usted se enteró de que el perro había fallecido.
Yo me enteré de que el perro se había perdido. Ya me enteré después cuando fue la policía a la casa.
I learned that the dog got lost, and later I found out when the police went to the house.
And I know this might be an uncomfortable question, but I have to ask, did you kill the dog?
Sé que esta es una pregunta incómoda, pero tengo que hacerla. ¿Usted mató al perro?
I made the same objection when I was made during motion.
La misma objeción que se hizo durante el impedimento indímena, denegada.
You can answer the question, did you kill the dog?
¿Puede responder la pregunta? ¿Usted
No,
mató al
por
perro?
supuesto que no.
No, of course not.
No further questions.
No más
Thank you.
preguntas.
Cross.
Gracias. Otra interrogatorio.
Good morning.
Buenos días.
Did you ever see my client harm the dog in any way?
¿Alguna vez vio usted a mi cliente haciéndole daño al perro de alguna forma?
No,
No.
Did you ever see my client scream at the dog or act aggressively toward the dog?
¿Alguna vez vio usted a mi cliente gritándole al perro o actuando de manera agresiva
No.
contra el perro? No.
Did you ever witness my client make any gestures or verbal aggressions towards the dog in question?
¿Alguna vez vio usted a mi cliente haciendo gestos de agresividad o hablándole con agresividad de manera verbal al perro?
no,
No.
You love your husband, correct?
Usted ama a su esposo, ¿verdad?
por supuesto.
Of course.
No further questions.
No hay más preguntas.
Any redirect examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
Segundo interrogatorio directo.
How long, if you recall, was the dog in your home?
¿Por cuánto tiempo recuerda usted que el perro permaneció en su casa?
Objection outside the scope of cross.
Objeción. O sea, no se ha hecho, se sale del ámbito del primer interrogatorio. Denegado.
You can answer the
Puede
question.
responder la pregunta.
How long was the dog inside the home
¿Por cuánto tiempo
or
estuvo
at the home?
¿Por cuánto tiempo estuvo el perro en la casa?
En la casa estuvo durante la noche, desde el día que llegó hasta por la noche, al otro día ya, no.
He was at the house from the day it arrived until nighttime, and the next day, no.
Were you able to have your eyes on the dog the entire time that the dog was at your home?
¿Pudo usted tener sus ojos, tener en vista al perro todo el tiempo que estuvo en la casa desde que llegó?
No, por supuesto que no, el perro estaba en el patio, yo estaba dentro, mi esposo en la casa. Yo
No.
lo vi, yo estuve fuera un poco tiempo.
No, of course not. The dog was in the patio, and I was inside the house. I saw it for a little bit, and it was outside.
Moment to confirm.
Yes.
Me dan permiso para
No
conversar.
further questions.
No hay más
Thank you. The
preguntas.
witness may step down and you're excused.
Se
Stay, call your next witness,
se
please.
permite que la testigo se retire, puede retirarse. Queda
Yes,
retirada.
sir. We'll take for a call
Se
for
llama
Donnie
al
Rodriguez.
próximo testigo. Se llama Donnie Rodríguez.
So,
All right, I spoke with Snake Oil Coach.
Yes, please.
Court,
Yes, sir.
counsel. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
You understand English?
Yes, sir.
I just want to make sure that we're on the same page. Can you please introduce yourself to the members of the jury and spell your name for the record?
My name is Jordani Rodriguez. I'm Domingo's son, and my name, spell my name.
Yes, please.
So my name is Yordany, and my last name Rodriguez, Rodriguez.
All right, thank you, sir. And I know you said you're related to Mr. Rodriguez. Are you his son?
Yes, sir.
Do you currently live with Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Can you identify your father in the courtroom today?
Yeah.
Can you identify by an article of clothing? Just say what he's wearing.
He's got like a blue suit and tie.
Okay. Is he wearing a blue tie?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Do you currently live with your father?
Yes.
Is that address 3367 66 Way or 66 West Way North in St. Petersburg, Florida?
66 Way, not west.
Not west, just way?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that located in Pinellas County?
It's in St. Petersburg, yeah.
Okay. Were you living at that address on the night of May 10th and into the morning on May 11th, 2024?
Yes.
Are you familiar with your father adopting a dog?
Yeah.
Would you recognize a picture of that dog if you saw it?
Yeah.
Can I have permission to approach Madam Clerk? showing defense was marked as State's Exhibit 1 for identification. Commissioner approach the witness. Yes. Mr. Rodriguez, do you recognize this picture?
Mhm.
How do you recognize it?
It's been all over the news.
Is this the dog that your father adopted?
Looks like it. I only saw it for one day.
Okay.
Just for one time.
Is that a fair and accurate representation of what the dog looked like that your father brought home?
Like I said, I only saw it one day. Looks like a dog.
Okay. Your Honor, the state offers into evidence what's been pre-marked for identification as State's Exhibit 1 as State's Exhibit 1.
Defense?
Based upon the testimony, I don't believe the predicate has been laid that this is fair and accurate.
Objections overruled. It will be admitted as marked.
Now, Mr. Rodriguez, that dog that I just showed you a picture of, did you have any interaction with that dog?
I only saw it when I got home, like probably 10 minutes.
Okay.
But
And since you had such a short time, next couple questions, I just have to ask them. Did you kill that dog?
No.
Did you cut that dog's head off?
No.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Cross.
Good morning, Mr. Rodriguez.
What?
You stated you only saw the dog for a short amount of time, about 10 minutes?
Yeah.
In that short amount of time, did you see your father at any point, Mr. Domingo, be aggressive with the dog?
No.
Was the dog acting erratically?
No, just doing dog stuff.
No further questions.
Thank you. Interview right?
Yes, Your Honor, briefly. From, Mr. Rodriguez, from May 10th to May 11th, 2024, did you have your eyes on your father 100% of the time?
Not 100% of the time, but he was home with us.
Okay.
You know, I live with him, but not exactly in the same part of the house.
Okay. Were there times where your father was not in your presence?
Not that I know.
Not that you know of? So he was with you 24 hours a day?
Like I said, once I go inside my house, I don't come outside much.
Okay. Isn't it true that you live in sort of like a separate part of the house?
Mhm.
So your father lives in the main house
Main house.
with your mother, right? And then you live in a different part of the house, right?
Yes.
So let's say while your father was sleeping in his part of the house and you're sleeping in your part of the house, you would not see your father, right?
No.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Sir, you may step down here. State call your next witness, please.
Good morning, ma'am.
Buenos días, señora. Good morning.
Ma'am, can you please introduce yourself to the members of the jury and spell your name for the record?
¿Puede usted, por favor, presentarse a los miembros del jurado y deletrear su nombre para que conste en las actas?
Okay. N-E.
Okay, N-E.
No. N-E. Y-D.
N-E-Y-D-A.
And what is your last name?
¿Cuál es su apellido?
Conde.
Conde.
How do you spell that?
¿Cómo se deletrea?
C-O-N-D-E.
C-O-N-D-E.
Ma'am,
Ahora, señora,
are you related to Domingo Rodriguez?
¿usted es pariente del señor Domingo Rodríguez?
Sí, cuñada.
Yes, in-law.
Do you live at the same address as Domingo Rodriguez?
¿Usted vive en la misma dirección que el señor Domingo Rodríguez?
Sí.
Yes.
And is that address 3367 66th Way North, St. Petersburg, Florida?
¿Y esa dirección es la 3367 66 Way Norte, San Petersburgo, Florida?
Sí.
Yes.
Were you living there at that address with Domingo Rodriguez on May 10th and May 11th, 2024?
¿Usted estaba viviendo ahí en esa dirección con Domingo Rodríguez el 10 y el 11 de mayo del 2024?
Sí.
Yes.
Are you aware that Mr. Rodriguez adopted a dog around that time?
¿Está usted al tanto de que el señor Rodríguez adoptó un perro alrededor de ese tiempo?
Sí.
Yes.
Did you ever see that dog?
¿Usted en algún momento vio ese perro?
Sí.
Yes.
Your Honor, Commissioner Brooks, Court.
Permiso para sacarme al secretario.
Showing the witness what's already in evidence as
Estoy
State's Exhibit 1.
mostrando lo que se ha presentado como la prueba de cargo número 1.
Is this the dog that Domingo adopted?
Este es el perro que Domingo adoptó.
El perro, que no sé describirlo bien porque nada más llegué de mi trabajo, lo vi en el patio y entré para mi casa a hacer, yo trabajo de 7 de la mañana a 5:30 de la tarde.
Well,
Y entré para mi casa y ya no salí más afuera, no
I-
hice más control.
I saw the dog, but I don't know how to describe it well because you see, I just came home from work and I saw it in the patio, but then I went inside. I work from 7 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. So once I was inside, I didn't go out much more.
No salgo más de mi casa.
I don't really leave my house.
Okay. Did you ever pet the dog?
¿Usted en algún momento acarició al perro?
No.
No.
Is it fair to say you just saw it briefly and then went into your part of the house?
¿Es justo decir que usted simplemente lo vio brevemente y luego se
Sí.
metió a su parte de la casa?
Sí, de lejos, no.
Yes, from afar only.
And now these next questions, I just have to ask them. Did you kill that dog?
Ahora estas próximas preguntas yo tengo que hacérselas. ¿Usted mató a ese perro?
No.
No.
Did you cut that dog's head off?
¿Usted le cortó la cabeza a ese perro?
No.
No.
I have no further questions.
No
Your
tengo
Honor.
ninguna otra pregunta, su señoría.
Thank you. Cross-examination.
Segundo interrogatorio.
Good morning, Ms. Conde.
Buenos días, señora Conde.
Una tía.
I just wanted to clarify, you stated when you got home, you saw the dog in the yard?
Solo quiero aclarar, ¿usted declaró que cuando llegó a casa vio al perro en el patio?
Sí.
Yes.
No further questions.
No tengo ninguna otra pregunta.
Redirect?
Redirecto.
I have no questions, Your Honor.
Ninguna otra pregunta, su señoría.
Thank you, ma'am. You may
Gracias, señora.
step down.
Usted puede
You're
bajarse.
excused. Have a
Está
great day.
excusada. Que tenga un buen día.
Okay, call your next witness.
Para el tribunal.
Buenos días, me llamo Tania Martínez Rodríguez Rodríguez,
Good
Eh,
morning. My name is Tania Marlene Rodriguez Rodriguez.
TANIA
TANIA
MARLENY.
MARLENY
RODRIGUEZ.
RODRIGUEZ.
Ms. Rodriguez, are you related to Domingo Rodriguez?
¿Tiene usted relación o parentesco con el señor Rodríguez?
Sí, es mi hermano.
Yes, he is my brother.
And do you live with Domingo Rodriguez?
¿Vive usted con el señor Domingo Rodríguez?
No,
No.
Where is your home? What is
¿Dónde-
the address?
¿Cuál es su dirección de habitación?
mi dirección es 4340 72 ND, Avenida Norte, Pinera Park.
My address is 4340 72 Avenue, 72nd Avenue, North Pinellas Park.
Did you learn eventually that your brother adopted a dog?
¿Se enteró usted eventualmente de que su hermano adoptó un perro?
Sí,
Yes.
Did you learn about this before or after police became involved in the case?
¿Se enteró usted de esto antes o después de que la policía se involucrara en el caso?
después,
After.
Did you ever meet a dog that your brother had adopted?
¿Alguna vez usted conoció a un perro que su hermano hubiese adoptado?
bueno, aquí no, pero en Cuba sí él tuvo animal.
Well, not here, but in Cuba he did have animals.
But here in the United States, have you ever met specifically the dog that would have been adopted in May 2024?
Pero aquí en Estados Unidos, ¿conoció usted específicamente el perro que él había adoptado
No,
en
no,
mayo de
no, yo no lo
2024?
conocí, no lo conocí,
No, I didn't meet him. No,
nunca lo vi.
I never saw it.
You didn't cut the head off of that dog.
¿Usted no le cortó la cabeza a ese perro?
Oh, claro que no.
Oh, of course not.
No further questions.
I'll
No más
sustain the
preguntas.
previous objection.
Your Honor, may we approach?
Yes.
Voy a conceder la objeción anterior. ¿Podemos acercarnos?
That or of your brother going. Ms. Rodriguez, are you aware that or of your brother going to your home on the night of May 10th going into May 11th, 2024?
Señora Rodríguez, ¿está usted al tanto de que su hermano hubiese ido a su casa entre el 10 de mayo y el 11 de mayo?
Bueno, fecha exacta no te puedo decir porque él nos visita cada rato. No te sé decir una fecha exacta, pero sí hablamos y incluso él me dijo del cumpleaños de él y que los muchachos querían hacer una actividad por el día de su cumpleaños y el día de la madre. Pero fecha exacta de decirte que hablamos, no te sé decir porque hablamos a menudo.
I can't give you an exact date, but we do talk, and yes, we spoke. He wanted to talk to me about his upcoming birthday, and he wanted to do some activity with the boys, with the children, and for Mother's Day. So I can't give you an exact date, but we do talk often.
I'm going to confirm.
Yes.
¿Me permite hablar?
No further questions.
No hay más
Thank you.
preguntas en
Cross
este
exam.
momento.
And on direct examination, you were asked a question in which you responded to that you've known my client have dogs in Cuba. Do you remember that?
En el primer interrogatorio se le hizo una pregunta donde usted respondió que usted sí sabía que su hermano tenía perros en Cuba. ¿Usted recuerda eso?
Sí,
Were these
Yes.
pets? Pets?
Eran mascotas.
sí.
Objection.
Yes.
Nosotros desde
objeción.
niños,
What's your objection?
Relevance for custody.
Por la relevancia, es
As
una
to
lesión por la
both.
relevancia denegada a ambas.
Have you ever had personal knowledge of my client abusing or acting cruelly to any of those animals?
Character of this.
Sustained?
May I
¿Ha
request,
tenido
Your Honor?
usted, ha tenido,
No.
Other than what you've testified, do you have any other knowledge about this case?
aparte de lo que usted ha testificado, ¿tiene usted algún conocimiento adicional en este caso, sobre este caso?
ninguno. Estoy segura que él no lo hizo.
No, I'm just certain that he didn't do it.
Nothing
Objeción,
further.
no hay más nada.
Redirect?
I object to the
Segundo
witness last
interrogatorio
response.
directo.
Ask that Your Honor strike that answer.
Objeto a la
response or to the
última
question?
pregunta, a la última respuesta de la
To the
testigo.
question and response.
Objeto a la pregunta y a la
Overruled as
respuesta,
to the
denegada
question,
la
sustained as to the
pregunta
response.
y al lugar con respecto a la respuesta.
Any redirect?
¿Algún segundo interrogatorio directo?
No, Your Honor.
No, su señoría.
Ma'am, you may step down.
Señora,
Thank you.
¿puede usted retirarse? Gracias.
Okay.
Sir, can you please state your name for the record and spell it?
Por favor, señor, diga su nombre para que conste en las actas y deletréelo.
Fermín Rodríguez Rodríguez.
Fermín Rodríguez Rodríguez.
Fermin.
Fermin.
And then
Rodriguez, is that spelled Rodriguez?
Y Rodríguez se deletra Rodriguez. Yeah.
Okay. Sir, are you related to Domingo Rodriguez?
Señor, ¿es usted pariente de Domingo Rodríguez?
Hermano.
Brother.
Do you live with Domingo
¿Vive
Rodriguez?
usted con Domingo Rodríguez?
No.
No.
Do you live at the address 4340 72nd Avenue North, Pinellas Park?
Yes.
¿Usted vive en la dirección 4340 72 Avenida Norte, Pinellas Park?
Yes.
Yes.
Were you living there on May 10th and May 11th, 2024?
¿Usted estaba viviendo ahí el 10 y el 11 de mayo del 2024?
Sí.
Yes.
Now, the night of May 10th, 2024, going into the early morning, May 11th, 2024, did your brother ever go over to your house?
Ahora, la noche del 10 de mayo del 2024 hasta las tempranas horas de la mañana del 11 de mayo del 2024, ¿su hermano en algún momento fue a su casa?
No.
No.
He never went to your house?
Nunca fue a su casa. No.
Are you aware of your brother adopting a dog?
¿Está usted al tanto de que su hermano adoptó un perro?
No.
No.
You don't know that your brother adopted a dog?
¿Usted no sabe que su hermano adoptó un perro?
No, tampoco voy a hacer.
¿Perdón?
Que no.
No, that no.
And so because you don't know about it, you didn't kill the dog, did you?
Y como usted no sabe sobre eso, usted no mató al perro, ¿verdad?
No, me voy a matar si no vi el perro.
No, how would I kill a dog I didn't see?
Right. And you're laughing, but you didn't cut the dog's head off either, right?
Y usted se está riendo, pero usted tampoco no le cortó la cabeza al perro, ¿verdad?
No, no, no.
No, no, no.
I have no further questions.
Ninguna otra pregunta.
Cross?
Contrainterrogatorio.
Good morning.
Buenos días.
Bueno,
Good morning.
You see your brother?
¿Usted ve a su
Yes.
hermano? Yes.
Have you ever been told that you guys look alike?
¿Alguna vez le han dicho que ustedes se parecen?
sí.
Yes.
You were asked about specific dates, May 10th, May 11th. You remember that question by the prosecutor?
Le preguntaron sobre las fechas específicas, el 10 de mayo, el 11 de mayo. ¿Usted recuerda esa pregunta?
Sí.
Yes.
What time do you usually go to bed?
¿A qué hora normalmente usted se va a dormir?
Bueno, yo trabajo de noche.
Well, I work all until the night.
So you weren't at your house at that time?
Así que usted no estaba en su casa en ese momento.
Bueno, el día específico sí, no sé si sería ese día que estaba en casa, ¿no? Porque
Well, that specific date, I don't know if I was in the house or not.
What's your normal work schedule?
¿Cuál es su horario de trabajo normal?
yo soy todas las 7 de la noche.
I get out at 7 p.m.
What time do you usually go to bed?
¿Y normalmente a qué hora se va a dormir usted?
Yo duermo, me pongo a ver la televisión y eso, y duermo después que pase el noticiero.
Después que pase?
El noticiero.
I start watching TV and stuff, and then I go to bed after the news.
What time would that be?
¿A qué hora sería eso?
El noticiero se termina a las 12 más o menos me acuerdo.
The news ends around 12, so around 12 I go to bed.
Do you have any windows that lead out to the front side of your house in your bedroom?
¿Tiene usted ventanas en su dormitorio que dan hacia la parte delantera de la casa?
Sí, pero tienen cortina.
Yes, but they have curtains.
Nothing further.
Ninguna otra pregunta.
Redirect?
Redirecto.
No redirect, Your Honor.
Ningún redirecto.
Sir, thank you. You
Muy
may
bien.
step down.
Señor, gracias.
You're
Ya,
subject to recall.
Está excusado, pero puede ser rellamado.
And the next,
Do you have another last name?
¿Tiene usted otro apellido?
Marco.
¿Marco?
Marco.
Marcos.
Do you have a son?
¿Tiene usted un hijo? ¿Usted tiene un hijo?
6.
6.
And of those 6, how many are men?
Y de esos 6 hijos, ¿cuántos son varones?
Uno.
1.
Do you have a son named Domingo?
¿Tiene un hijo que se llama Domingo?
Bien.
That's my mistake. Do you have a son named Fermín?
Usted tiene un hijo llamado Fermín.
No me acuerdo, no me acuerdo.
I don't remember.
That's my mistake. Is Domingo somebody who's related to you by marriage?
Domingo es pariente de usted por matrimonio.
Sí.
Yes.
Who is he married to?
¿Con quién está casado él?
Una hija mía,
With one of my daughters.
Which daughter?
¿Cuál hija?
Marlene.
Miss Lenny.
Disregarding my questions about the names of your sons, can you please give me the name of your biological son?
Vamos a olvidar la pregunta que le hice de sus hijos. ¿Me puede decir el nombre de su hijo biológico? ¿Su hijo? ¿El nombre de su hijo?
The one male that you had stated you
No
had.
me acuerdo.
El hijo que usted dijo que tenía, el hijo varón que usted tiene.
Directo. No me acuerdo, no me acuerdo.
Roberto, I don't remember. No, I don't recall.
No me acuerdo.
I don't remember.
Do you know where you are now?
¿Sabe usted dónde está ahorita?
Do you know what?
No.
Record reflect that he shook his head no.
thank you, sir.
No, dice no.
May I have a moment, Your Honor?
Me da un momento, por favor, su señoría.
Your Honor, we'll concede at this time. that we will not be calling him as a witness.
Will not be calling him as a witness.
Correct.
No lo vamos a
And
llamar
does the
como
defense wish to
testigo,
call
¿estamos
this
de
person as a
acuerdo?
witness? Absolutely.
La defensa desea llamarlo como testigo, totalmente, ¿no? ¿Sí,
Sir,
señoría?
thank you for being here
Señor,
today.
gracias por haber venido hoy.
You may step down and leave the court.
Usted puede salir de la sala del tribunal.
We're going to take a 10-minute comfort break.
Vamos a
And I'll
tomar
see you all in 10
un
minutes.
Wow. That was cruel. That was just cruel. At the end there, that was just cruel.
Evening, specific time, probably around 4 or 5-ish o'clock.
Okay. Now, in that area where you go fishing in at East Beach, what does that area look like? What is there vegetation? Is there sand, rocks?
Yeah, so when you go out there, it's a lot of mangrove cover, but it eventually opens up on the right side of it's a bit sandy, beachy area. And then on the left side, it's a lot more mangroves with little fishing cutouts.
What do you mean a fishing cutout?
In the mangroves, there's kind of like just a area. It's a small clearing where you can walk through the mangroves to get access to the water.
Now, in that mangrove area, are there bugs or other wildlife?
Oh yeah, you'll see raccoons out there, crabs, fiddler crabs, mangrove crabs, plenty of insects living in the mangroves.
You see fish out there, hopefully?
Hopefully.
Your Honor, permission to approach the clerk?
Granted.
To A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And also, let's start with those. Go ahead and take a look at that, please. Do you recognize 2A?
2A, yeah, that's the end of the point where it kind of leads to just a little roundabout section for you to turn around and go back.
Go ahead and go through the rest of them, please.
Okay. Describe what I'm
You can just
seeing.
take a look at them first.
Okay.
And I apologize, I did not provide or show defense counsel. I'm handing copies to defense counsel right now. Okay, Mr. Bristol, now that you've looked at 2A through G, what do you recognize?
Yeah, that's the area where we went fishing,
So
and I normally go fishing. The
Lord,
picture specifically was that it definitely showed the little mangrove area with the cutout that we access to go fishing.
Now, do each of these photos fairly and accurately depict the Fort DeSoto fishing area and the area surrounding that area, the fishing spot that you went to on May 14, 2024?
Correct, yes.
Permission to, or at this time, the state would move into evidence states 2A through 2G.
Defense?
No objection.
Will be admitted as marked.
Permission to publish.
Granted.
this is the top of the bone.
Okay, now I will have you briefly describe.
Okay, so that's the end of the East Beach at Fort DeSoto. It's just the little curved road. It's facing towards the Gulf side. So, well, the input from the Gulf. And so it's a bit sandier, but on the other side, you'll end up seeing mangroves.
Looking at 2 feet, is this just another angle of the same?
Yeah, same thing. Over on the left side of the picture is the sandy area, and the right side of the picture is the mangrove cover.
Looking at 2C, is this, what is this? Where are we getting close to in this?
So that photo is the mangrove cover that I think you can see the palm tree right there. That's kind of like with the little wood posts. That's the area where the cutout for access to the water is.
Would it assist you if I could give you a pointer to identify certain spots?
Sure.
Permission to approach him?
Yes.
Am I allowed to stand?
Yeah. May the witness stand?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, now we're looking at 2D. If it helps you to stand and
Okay,
use
well,
that pointer, go ahead, please. What are we looking at here?
That one's pretty easy. That's the mangrove cutout that I was just describing. That's where we go to access the beach area.
Do you walk down that little pathway?
Correct, yes.
Now I'm gonna go relatively quickly through the next 2. Here, are we just seeing the mangroves in that area?
Yeah, yep. And that's just off to the left side of the cutout.
And 2F?
Same thing, just a bit deeper in the left side of the cutout.
And 2G?
2G, that's water, and that's like about the general vicinity where the bag was at. That's looking from the shoreline into the water by where the roots meet the water for the mangroves.
Okay, we're gonna come back to this one. Now you mentioned bag. I'm gonna back up just a bit. When you were out there that day, did you notice anything unusual?
Yeah, so when we first got out there, we set up our fishing lines and everything and got out there probably no more than 3 minutes. I looked over to my left and noticed a transparent kind of opaque trash bag floating in the water, and it was very obvious that there was stuff inside it.
When you say stuff, what was, when you first saw it, what was obvious about, or what kind of stuff?
So the first thing I saw, it was very stiff, and you could see like the thigh area of an animal.
Okay.
And so I turned to my friend Tyler, who was out fishing with me, and I got his attention. I was like, I think there's an animal in that bag over there.
What did you do next?
So Tyler and I just got a little bit closer to it just to confirm, and we realized, yeah, that's got a bit closer. Realized there was more, and it was a dog. And so we both walked back to shore. Tyler got his phone and called the authorities.
Okay. And once those, did anybody arrive in response to that call?
Yeah, we had one deputy arrived, and then eventually 2 park rangers from Fort DeSoto.
Now, when you first saw the bag, was it like a sealed bag? Can you describe it a little bit more, please?
I mean, it was a clear or like opaque trash bag, so it was tied off at the end and everything. But I mean, it had water in it, so it was able to stay afloat because it trapped air from it being tied off, but it was a little bit submerged.
Okay. So were there any holes or anything?
From what I was aware, a little bit. Water had to have gotten in somehow.
Okay. Permission to approach the clerk?
Granted.
Permission to approach the witness. Does this contain photos?
Yeah,
And do these photos depict the bag and the area where you found the bag?
correct.
Do they fairly and accurately depict that area?
Yeah.
This time the state would move into evidence states exhibit 4 for identification as states exhibit 3.
Defense,
No objection.
be admitted as marked.
Okay, as states exhibit 4.
Any objection
For publication?
for admission?
Oh, no objection.
Admitted,
And permission to publish.
granted.
Okay, so they are showing pictures. So look away, everybody. Look away. They are showing pictures. So if you are like me, I don't think I want to see it either. So yeah. Be aware. Trigger warning. As Lady Di says, trigger warning. So look away, Erin Hack.
Looking here, who is in this photo, if you know?
That is the deputy that was called and one of the park rangers, and they are looking at the bag that was pulled in, containing the body.
Okay. Now looking at this photo, was this prior to them pulling it out? I think we might be working a little bit backwards chronologically.
Yeah, that's after we pulled it out. That's just it. The bag with the body sitting on the shoreline.
Is that how the bag appeared when you initially saw it?
Yeah, it was kind of floating on its back instead, with the legs a bit more up towards the sky. It wasn't on its side.
And where was it?
Off to the left side of the cutout, probably about 15, 20 feet away.
Okay. Let's see the next one. What is this showing here?
That you can see, like right there, is the bag that's been caught up in the roots of the mangrove.
Do you know who took these photos?
My friend Tyler.
And was that at the time that you guys had observed the bag?
Yeah. Well, not exactly at the time, but just shortly after we had called the authorities first.
Okay. And this photo?
The same thing. It's a bit closer up. You can see the bag just nestled into behind the leaves of the mangroves.
And what does this show?
And that is me using a stick to pull the bag towards the shore. Same thing, I guess a bit better shot of me holding the stick to move the bag in.
When you move the bag with that stick, do you know if it ripped or anything, or were you able to do it gently?
From what I was aware of, I didn't rip the bag.
Okay.
I didn't really try to do too much pressure on it because I didn't know how long it had been there. Didn't want to like make it smelly if it was decomposed.
Now, where did you find that stick?
Just within the mangroves, just nearby. I had gotten out there and the authorities had given me gloves, but I still didn't want to just touch it with my hands. So I just looked into the mangroves a little bit just to find a loose stick that was there.
I apologize, Your Honor. Permission to approach the
Granted.
Looking again at states 2G. Does this area look familiar?
Yeah, that's about the, like within about the general area of where the bag was. That kind of like that curved branch that's kind of like hanging out over the water. It was kind of like, that's like the one that was out in the previous photos that was covering the area that was being like foliage covered.
And looking a little bit closer, do we see any of those? Sorry, I'm trying to frame myself in here. Any of those crabs you were talking about?
Bottom left corner, little black spot on the tree trunk.
Would you mind using the pointer?
Yeah. That's a little mangrove crab.
Do you see those often?
Oh yeah, they're all over the place down there.
After you pulled the bag towards the shore, what happened with the bag?
Afterwards, the park rangers eventually came out with a brute, the big old black trash bags, and they moved the body with the bag into that trash bag.
Based on your observations, do you know why they did that?
The bag had a little bit of rips in it.
And when you say the bag had rips, which one?
The transparent bag that it was originally in.
When you were out there, did you ever see, well, let me ask you this. What did you notice, if anything, about the dog's body itself?
So as I was bringing the body in, I noticed that it was a bit shorter than it should have been. And as it kind of rotated, I realized it did not have a head.
Did you ever find the head or see the head?
No, didn't find it, didn't look for it.
After that, did you guys stay out there to continue fishing, or your attempts to fish?
Tyler and I moved over to the right side of Fort DeSoto to the pier, but we didn't stay very long afterwards.
Moment to convert.
Yes.
I want to ask you some questions about your testimony, okay?
Okay.
You testified when shown some of these pictures, and in just a second, I'm going to bring them up for you to review again. You said that the bag was about 15 to 20 feet away, correct?
Yeah.
And that was, if you're looking out into the water from that clearing, that would have been on the left side?
Yeah.
Was that 15, 20 feet away in the water or brushed up against the mangroves?
Brushed up against the mangrove. So like you go out there, and like once you get past the mangrove line, if you just immediately look left, it was about that way.
How deep is that water at that time?
Depending on the tide, but I mean, it can get to be about like waist height or so.
Now, when you were out there and you noticed the bag, you were on a kayak?
We were wading out there in the water. We were not in a kayak.
Do you have any special apparel on?
I had shorts and a t-shirt.
About how high on your body did you get wet?
I mean, it showed in the pictures, but I think it was probably about to like my like
Let the
lower thigh.
Let the record reflect that he was pointing to his the part of the thigh he just testified to. Now, is it your testimony that somebody would be able to get to that portion of the mangroves by foot?
Yeah.
They would have to get wet, though,
Yeah,
correct?
they'd have to get. I mean, they could probably walk through the mangroves. I mean, they're not super dense out there.
Now, you would agree with me that the tide was coming into the mangroves at around this time, correct?
I mean, I'm not familiar if it was I don't know if it was high or low tide. I'm sure if you bring the pictures back up, I could tell you a bit better because you'd be able to see where the tide line is, but.
May I approach the clerk?
Yes.
Picture of the bag.
If the tide was coming in or going out?
Do you have that picture of the bag being on the shoreline? Because I can tell by the residual from the leaves on
I'm
the
sure the
ground.
state heard you. They've been very gracious enough to put this
There we go.
pictures up.
Okay. So it looks like it's actually a bit more on low tide right now. So the tide would have been going out.
Okay. Now, you've been there a lot, correct?
Yeah.
How would you describe the geography of that east tip area?
I mean, it's pretty flat, sandy in some areas with just open, no cover, while other areas are pretty marshy, mangrove swampy with plenty of tree cover.
Now, you'd agree with me that the tides are going in and out?
Yeah, the tides, it's the entrance to the Gulf, then Tampa Bay and everything. So the Gulf brings water in and then eventually will bring out water out with the tides.
Now, you can't tell us how long that bag has been there, correct?
Not that I know.
And you can't tell us if the bag was left there at that specific position in the mangroves, as opposed to being out in the water and then being brought in with the tides, correct?
Yeah, I mean, there's
Come again?
there's plenty of possibility that could have happened.
And you didn't see anybody drop this bag off?
No.
Now, when you said that you were using the stick to bring the bag in, was that at the direction of somebody, or did you decide to
That
do
was
that on your own?
myself not wanting to touch it.
No, but did somebody tell you to bring the bag in?
Oh yeah, the officer, the deputy told us to bring it in. He was in uniform, so he couldn't get in the water, and I had already been out there, so my shorts were already wet.
And you testified that this use first came across the bag around 4 or 5 o'clock?
I believe so, if my memory's correct, sure.
May I have a moment to confirm?
Yes, sir.
And I brought the dog out there, put it in the bag, and then deposited it in the water, and it could have floated out and then floated back in.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of different currents out there that could have put a bunch of different drop-off points. I'm not completely familiar with the tides myself of like how currents work in that area, but yeah.
You would say that that's possible?
Yeah, it didn't have to be placed specifically there. It could have been put somewhere else.
Recross?
Moment to confirm.
Yes. I apologize.
No further questions.
One recross?
Are you addressing the court, sir?
Yes, sir. If I may
What's your
recross on the
request?
question.
Yes, go ahead.
That last question, you said that there was multiple drop-off points, correct?
Sure. I mean, like he could have, I mean, whoever did it could have just put it in the Gulf on the beach side and the currents took it in. They could have put it over by Skyway and the tides brought it out and it just eventually come there. I mean, it's a big waterway area. There's plenty of places to put anything in there. You drop a can in the water and it'll float wherever.
No further questions.
Thank you. Anything else from the state?
No, Your Honor.
All right, sir, you can sit down. You're excused.
Okay.
M-A-R-K, Brian, B-R-A-I-N, W-A-R-C-H-O-L-A, Warchola.
All right, now, Mr. Warchola, where do you work?
Fort DeSoto Park.
How long have you been working there?
31 years and 7 months.
Can you explain to the members of the jury what sort of duties, responsibilities that you've got as a park ranger out at Fort DeSoto?
I am the night ranger. I also do custodial work and light maintenance work as well.
Now, I want to talk with you. Were you working on May 14th, 2024 out at Fort DeSoto?
Yes, I was.
What capacity were you working that day? Starting your night shift?
Yes, I was.
Can you explain to the members of the jury, did anything odd happen while you were working that shift?
A call came across the radio for a deputy assist.
And what does that mean, deputy assist?
That means that the deputy would like you to come down there and help him out.
Okay, and just so I'm clear, that means that a deputy had been out there and they're calling you to, as a park ranger, go out and help them out, right?
Correct.
Okay, and so did you go out to wherever the deputy needed you?
I went to, yes, I did. It was East Tip.
Can you explain to the members of the jury a little bit about the East Tip?
The East Tip in that section of the road runs east to west. The right side of the road is a scenic overlook of Skyway Bridge, and the left side of the road would be a shoreline with mangroves.
Now, over on the east tip, are there any concession stands?
No, there are not.
Are there parking lots?
Just pull off the side of the road, dirt patches.
Okay, and so I'm clear, in other parts of Fort DeSoto, there's actual parking lots, right?
Correct.
Where people go and pay for parking?
Yes.
But over on the east tip, are there those same parking lots?
No.
You're saying that people will just pull off on the side of the road and park their cars
Yes.
there? Concession stand, no concession stands, no convenience stores?
No.
Would you describe that part of Fort DeSoto Beach, the east tip, as a secluded part of the beach?
The left side of the road and the very end of it is secluded.
And why is that?
It's mangrove shoreline.
Okay. Now, going back to May 14th, May 14th, 2024, whenever you got out to the east tip for the deputy assist, can you describe the scene to the members of the jury whenever you got out there?
Well, the deputy was parked on the side of the road, and there were two young men, individuals, fishermen, standing there.
Okay. Thank you. And can you describe the reason for getting called out there?
It was a body of a dog in a bag.
Your Honor, permission to approach the clerk?
Granted.
Permission to approach the witness with an exhibit.
Granted.
Shown defense was marked for identification as State's Exhibit 3. Mr. Marchola, I'm handing you what's been pre-marked for identification as State's Exhibit 3. Do you recognize this?
Yes, I do.
Can you explain what it is?
It is a deceased animal inside of a black plastic bag.
Is this the deceased animal? Is that the reason why you went out to East Tip?
Yes, it was.
Okay. In this picture, is this a fair and accurate representation of the animal in the bag whenever you saw it?
It was in a different bag.
Okay. But so the animal, can you explain that a little bit?
Okay, so when I seen the animal, it was in a clear plastic bag with some rips and tears in it. And it was placed in that bag because it was falling through the bag that it was in.
So just so I'm clear, the black bag was a secondary bag after we realized that there's some holes and stuff in the transparent plastic.
Correct.
Bag. And so is this a fair and accurate representation of the dog that you saw at some point in the day?
Yes.
Your Honor, the state offers into evidence what's been pre-marked for identification as State's Exhibit 3 as State's Exhibit 3.
Defense? It'll be admitted as marked.
Permission to follow to members of the jury ended. And Mr. Marchola, I'm showing you and publishing to the members of the jury what's now in evidence as State's Exhibit 3. Can you kind of just describe to the members of the jury what it is that we're looking at?
You're looking at a deceased animal that's had its head cut off.
Now, earlier we were talking about the transparent bag versus the black plastic bag. Do you recognize or do you see in this photograph the clear plastic bag kind of tucked under the dog?
Yes, I do.
Do you mind standing up and pointing that out to the members of the jury? Okay. And so just to be clear, you can go grab a seat. Thank you, sir. And so to be clear, was the dog in the plastic bag, the original plastic bag, were they contained in this larger black plastic bag?
Yes.
Everything was put into the black plastic bag?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Now, Mr. Warchola, did you have any other involvement in this case after you went out to East Tip and spoke with the deputies?
I put it in the bag, and then it was transported to our maintenance road out of public view.
Do you know who transported that? Was it somebody with animal services?
I believe it. I don't recall.
Okay, if you don't recall, that's fine. If you don't remember, that's okay too. Your Honor, may I have a moment to confer?
Yeah.
Your Honor, no further questions.
Cross?
Yes, Judge.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ricardo. On May 14th, when you came across the bag with the body in it, you didn't conduct any additional interviews with anyone there?
No, I did not talk to anybody else. The gentleman had left. They took off.
By the gentleman, you mean the young man who was fishing?
The fisherman, yes.
And you didn't see the dog until it was brought to shore, correct? You didn't see it when it was out in the water?
No, I did not.
How many other park rangers were present with you at that time?
No other park rangers were with me.
And did you discuss what you thought may have happened with the officers in this case?
Briefly,
What did you tell them?
I said it appears to be an animal with its head chopped off.
Woman to converge.
Granted.
Were there any additional park rangers on duty that day?
Yes, there was.
And did they tell you anything about what happened?
No, they did not.
Overruled.
No further questions, Judge.
Thank you. All right. Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor, briefly. Mr. Bartola, out in East Tip in that mangrove area, are there any, animals that are out there?
Yes, there are.
What kind of animals?
You have fiddler crabs, mangrove crabs, spider crabs, blue crabs, stone crabs, as well as snails, raccoons, possums, birds, fish, sharks.
Fair to say a lot of wildlife?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
All right, thank you. Sir, you may step down. You're excused subject to recall. Thank you. State client witness.
The state calls on
The chair all the way forward and just speak a loud voice for the court.
All right, you may what?
Thank you. Good afternoon. I think we just hit 12. Can you please introduce yourself to the jury by spelling your first and last name?
Annika Wooten, ANNIKA WOOTEN.
And where do you work?
I work at Pinellas County Animal Services.
What is your position there?
I'm an animal control officer.
Now, you're an officer. Are you sworn law enforcement?
No.
But do you still have the title officer?
Yes.
Officer Wooten, how long have you been with Animal Services?
A little over a year.
And what is your, what are the tasks that you do, or what does the position entail as an animal control officer?
We run calls that vary in what we do. It ranges from code enforcement for local county ordinances to navigating animal cruelty cases, or just educating the public on things like leash laws and public nuisance ordinances in the county.
Are you personally assigned to a specific area in the county, or how does that work?
We are assigned zones in the county depending on where we are. So that can range from Zone 1, which is all the way down in South St. Pete, up to areas like Tarpon Springs, which would be Zone 6.
And when you say we, do you mean each individual animal control officer?
Yes.
And the animal services as a whole, can they respond to the entire county?
Yes.
Back in May 14, 2024, what position did you hold then?
Animal control officer.
The same position you have now?
Yes.
And on that day, do you know if you worked?
Yes.
What time would your shift have been started?
It would have started at 7 a.m.
And ended?
At 5:30 p.m.
Towards the end of your shift, did you get a call?
Yes.
Tell me about that. How did you get assigned that call?
So I was working standby that night, which means that we're on call. We take a phone and a truck home in case any emergency calls come in overnight. We were called in, we received a call around 4:45, I believe, that requested an officer meet sheriff's office deputies down at Fort DeSoto.
Generally, what was that call in reference to?
The call was in reference to that someone at Fort DeSoto had found a deceased dog, and the deputies were requesting that an officer come down and scan the dog for a microchip.
May I have permission to approach the clerk?
Granted.
I'm handing defense counsel a copy of states pre-marked 5A, B, C, and D. Permission to approach the witness.
Granted.
Officer Wooten, looking at 5A, do you recognize that photo?
Yes,
And what does that depict?
that is one of the animal services trucks.
Is that the one you were operating on May 14, 2024?
Yes,
Is that a fair and accurate depiction of that truck?
yes.
And looking at states 5C and 5D, do you recognize what is depicted in those photos?
Yes.
And what is depicted in those photos?
The handheld part of the microchip scanner.
I'm sorry, can you speak up a little? Just pay the microchip
The
scanner?
handheld part of the microchip scanner.
And this 5D,
Yes,
that is also the same?
yes,
Does that fairly and accurately depict the microchip scanner that you have?
yes.
And looking at 5B for identification, what are we looking at here?
That is the body of the dog that we were called down to examine.
Ultimately, did you recover that body?
Yes,
Is that a fair and accurate depiction of that body?
yes.
At this time, the state offers for admission into evidence states 5A, B, C, and D.
Yes, we have an objection. Can I approach?
Sure.
Looking at states exhibit 5C. All right, Officer Wooten, if you could just look to your right. What does 5C depict?
That is the backside of the handheld part of the microchip scanner.
And can you tell me a little bit about a microchip scanner? What is that? What is this? Well, let's talk first about microchips. When it comes to animals, what are microchips used for?
Microchips are used to hold identification information, either the animal's information or the owner's information, or both, depending on the company.
Now, do you know who inserts microchips into animals?
Generally, it's vet technicians. I believe the animal services representatives at our shelter also administer them, but from what I know, other than that, it's generally just vet technicians.
Do you know how they are inserted?
With a syringe and a large needle.
Is it standard practice, to your knowledge, for animal services personnel to chip the dogs that come into their facility?
When they are adopted out.
So the dogs that are being put up for adoption?
Yes.
And now, are there other, as opposed to what? Are there other dogs who maybe are coming in not for adoption?
If a dog comes in and is not deemed adoptable, we would not microchip them.
Is that also perhaps include dogs that are stray dogs that you have yet to determine an odor?
Yes.
Do the microchips that Animal Service, that Pinellas County Animal Services uses, do those contain GPS devices?
No.
Is it fair to say that they simply store information
Yes.
related to the dog and owner?
Yes.
All right, so going back to when you first arrived, what did you see?
When I first arrived, there was Pinellas County Sheriff's Deputy Rosenberg and a Fort Stoda Park Ranger on a side road. The park ranger had a bag in the back of his truck with the body of the dog.
What did that bag look like?
It was a black trash bag.
And what did you do with that bag, if anything?
I helped to move it from the back of the truck to the ground to better examine the dog and scan for a microchip.
When you say examine the dog, for what purpose?
To see the injuries of the dog, to see if there's any possible things to either take pictures of or to also impound anything that the dog was found with or the dog's body itself.
Now, is it standard for animal services to come and recover deceased animal remains or carcasses?
It depends on the situation. For things like this, usually officers check in with their supervisors to see what they want to do with the remains.
But it's not uncommon that you would be called to a dead animal. Is that correct?
No.
Tell me, when you went to examine the dog, how exactly did you do it? Walk us through that if you don't mind.
After moving the bag that had the dog in it to the ground, we opened up the top of it just to scan for the microchip. The first thing that I did was scan the dog for a microchip. Once we determined that it did have a microchip, we moved the dog onto some paper just to help prevent anything from getting onto the road, and opened the bag more to get pictures of initially what the dog looked like with the bag in it. Eventually, we did move the dog out of the bag to get pictures of all angles of the body and also of the bag that the dog was found in.
Now, when you say you scan for the microchip, how does that work?
There's a wand attached to the other end of the microchip. You hold down a button and wave it over the animal's body. It works similar to a metal detecting wand at a security checkpoint. Just when the wand picks up where the microchip is, it lets out a sound to let you know, and it shows the number that the microchip has registered to it.
Did that happen in this case?
Yes.
Looking at State's Exhibit 5D, what are we looking at here?
That is the number that showed up when the wand was waved over the dog's body.
Now, where do you wave it over the dog's body? What area of the dog?
We wave it over the entire animal's body. The chip is generally found towards the nape between the shoulder blades, but we check everywhere just in case the chip is moved after implanting.
And do you know where the implantation site normally is? Is that it also in that area?
Yes.
In this case, where were you able to scan or where did the wand detect the microchip?
It was near the nape between the shoulder blades on the back.
What is the purpose of photographing the animal right away?
To document how the condition the animal was in when we were there on scene, rather than photographing it later on after it's already been impounded and transported to a different location. Both to document injuries that the dog may have had or residual things that are with the dog, like things that were found with the dog, or just debris or substances that may or may not have been on the dog.
Now, though you are not sworn law enforcement, is there still somewhat of a law enforcement aspect to your position?
There can be.
Objection, bolstering.
And what I'm getting at is that you have to do at least a investigation for animal services, correct?
Yes.
After examining the dog, what did you do with it?
After examining it, I double checked with my supervisors and what deputies wanted to do with the body, and I was given the clear to put the dog in the truck and transport it back to animal services for possible necropsy, and all the information that was on the microchip was given to the deputies.
Looking at State's Exhibit 5A, is this the truck that you were operating that day?
Yes.
And is this the truck that you used to transport the dog?
Yes.
Once you've transported the dog to, where exactly are you transporting the dog to?
I transported the dog back to Pinellas County Animal Services to store in the freezer that we have for deceased animals.
Where is Animal Services located?
On Ulmerton Road in Largo.
Here in Pinellas?
Yes.
It would make sense if you're Pinellas County Animal Services. Tell me about that freezer. Did you put the remains in that freezer?
I did.
When you responded out to the scene, did you ever learn of or see whether or not there was a head recovered?
When I arrived on scene, I was told that there was not a head and that a head had not been found.
Did you have any other involvement with the dog's remains once you placed it in that freezer?
I did not.
Moment to confirm, Your Honor?
Yes.
No questions at this time.
Cross?
May I inquire?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Woodland, good afternoon.
Yes, sorry.
You were showing some photographs with the wand reader. You had agreed with me that I had a company name Avid on it.
I did.
Are you affiliated with that company in any way?
Outside of working with those chip readers at work, no.
And is the chips that are used by Pinellas County Animal Services, are they manufactured or produced by Pinellas County Animal Services?
They are not.
Do you know who produces them?
Several different companies.
Can you give me a list of names?
911 Pet Chip, Rescue Link, Home Again. Those are a few of them.
Now, how does, if you know, how does Animal Services determine which chip to put in a specific dog?
I don't know that.
Have you had any prior Animal Services experience or occupation before working for Pinellas County Animal Services?
I have a degree in animal studies.
Bless you. In regards to the Avid wand reader, are there different wand readers that are used by Pinellas County Animal Services, or is that the only one?
Just Avid.
Now, in regard to the companies that you listed off that produce these chips, you're not affiliated with any one of those companies, correct?
No.
And you don't have any personal knowledge as to what specific chip was used in this case regarding the dog in this case?
May I look at my notes from the case report? Sure.
And may I ask what you're looking at, just so we're the record clear?
I'm looking at an animal view report, which is all the information that our computer system has on the dog and the microchip. The microchip would be 24 Pet Watch.
You're not affiliated with 24-Hour Pet Watch?
No.
You don't know how they work?
No.
Okay, you don't know how the microchips work?
I know how microchips work in general, but their specific proceedings, no.
Were you involved, take a step back, if a microchip is used, whether it's 24-Hour Pet Watch or another company's microchip, does Pinellas County Animal Services input information into that chip?
Yes.
And then the chip is syringed into the dog?
Yes.
So Pinellas, somebody, a human being from Pinellas County Animal Services has to type up information in a program, I'm assuming, that gets downloaded onto this chip, correct?
Yes.
Were you involved in any of that process regarding the dog in this case?
No.
Do you know who was?
No.
Would there be notes, such as the one that you were referencing just earlier, that would indicate who inputted the information in this case, specifically the microchip?
I don't know.
Now, obviously, when you came at the scene and you saw the body of the dog, it's impossible for you to have identified which dog this was, correct?
I'm
You
not
found
sure I
out
understand.
later, correct?
I'm sorry?
That you found out later the identity of the dog, correct?
Yes.
You didn't know the identity of the dog once you came across it on the scene.
No.
And there was no visible collar that had a name on it, correct?
No.
And there was no other identifying information about this dog other than the information that was received from the microchip? While you were at the scene?
No.
May I have a moment?
Yes.
You're not a records custodian for the Avid Wand Reader, that company?
No.
And you're not a records custodian for Pinellas County Animal Services?
No.
and you're not a records custodian for 24-hour pet watch?
No.
No further questions.
Associated with a microchip, is that time-stamped or dated?
I don't know for certain, but I believe so.
Do you know if it's, whether or not it's time-stamped? I'll put that aside. Do you know whether it's dated?
When it's uploaded into the computer system that we use, it is dated and time-stamped. I don't know about the chip specifically.
Now, being a animal control officer, fair to say you come into contact with a lot of dogs. Is that a yes? Sorry, just for the record. Did immediately, just based on the body that you saw, did you recognize this dog as one that you'd previously been in contact with?
Not for certain, no.
A moment to confirm.
Yes.
No further questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Tom.
I would imagine not.
Okay.
Not a problem.
Okay. Next one. My plan as of this moment is to stream this one, which is going to be about 2.5 hours odd, and then I'm going to stream the closings of the Zachary Hughes one, because some people think there'll be a verdict tonight. So there'll be no point streaming it tomorrow if that's the case, because you cheaters won't be able to contain yourselves. So I will do that after this. Right.
Shows vehicles exiting the park. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Okay. So the camera C17013, is that at ground level? Is it at waist level, or is it a little bit higher up?
This one is approximately 10 to 12 feet up in the air.
Okay. So it's up in the air about 10 to 12 feet.
Right.
And is it, are you able to see into, let's say, the bed of a truck from that angle?
Yeah, it's down at an angle like that, so it can see vehicles coming into the park.
Okay. I want to talk with you about a second camera that's indicated on this. It's camera, I think it's 17008. Are you familiar with that camera?
Yeah, that's this one here.
Okay. And just so the record's clear, you're indicating right in the middle of that map, there's a little label. Can you tell the members of the jury what direction that camera faces, what level it's at, and what it would capture?
That camera is approximately like 5 feet high. It's facing, there's a gate that's right there. That's the automated gate that's fixed. It's that shows the vehicles coming into that gate.
Okay. And so you can go grab a seat. Thanks, Frank. Now, Mr. Sean, these cameras, you said that you oversee those cameras?
Correct.
Were those cameras operational on May 11th, 2024?
Yes, I believe so.
Were they working correctly on May 11th, 2024?
As far as I know, yes.
Okay. Any indication from the cameras were malfunctioning?
No.
Okay. Permission to approach the clerk, Your Honor? Yes. And permission to approach the witness? Yes. All right. Now, Mr. Sean, I'm handing you what's been pre-marked for identification as States Exhibit 6 and States Exhibit 7. So the first one is States Exhibit 6. Do you recognize that one?
Yes.
Have you had a chance to review what's on that disc specifically?
Yes.
Does that disc contain the camera footage from camera C17013?
Yes.
And is it from, is it a fair and accurate representation of that camera footage from May 11, 2024?
Yes.
And you've had a chance to view specifically what's on that disc, right?
Yes.
Is there any evidence of any sort of tampering with the video footage or anything like that?
Not that I could tell.
Okay, Your Honor, the state offers any evidence what's been pre-marked for identification as States Exhibit 6, as States Exhibit 6.
Defense? We'd like to want you to witness.
Granted, Mr. Grant.
Now, you said that you oversee these cameras, correct?
Correct.
You work for the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office?
I do.
I see the insignia on your shirt, correct? Are these cameras maintained and operated by the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office?
Yes.
And now, how is it that you receive footage of these cameras?
The video is stored locally at Fort DeSoto, and just like any other video that we have for the sheriff's office, it's stored locally. And then if there's a case or anything that anytime they need to review video, they pull the video from the recorded files.
Now, when you say stored locally, that's at Fort DeSoto Park, correct? Now, is there a building that it's contained in?
It's the administrative building.
And who's in charge of that administrative building?
Not sure who's in charge of that. That's a county. That's a different municipality.
So that building is not maintained and overseen by the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office?
No,
Have you been inside that building?
I have.
Are you aware of the systems and the machines in place that maintain and record surveillance footage?
Or I'm not following your question.
There's an administrative building at Fort DeSoto Park, correct?
Right.
And in that building, that's where there's video footage, correct?
Right.
That building is not part of the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office.
That building is not what the video footage is.
Okay. Now, inside that building, there must be some computers or some recording system
Right.
that allows for videos and photographs to be downloaded or recorded. My question to you is, who maintains that specific equipment?
Pinellas County Sheriff's Office maintains the Bosch equipment for these cameras. Pinellas County BTS maintains the computer systems, the business computers that the range masters and park officials use.
Now, who's in charge of the preparation, testing, operation of this security equipment in that building?
Of the camera system, that's myself.
Even though it's on a separate location?
Correct.
And are you familiar with the operating condition and capability of the equipment inside that building?
As far as the Bosch video system?
Yes.
Yes.
No further questions.
Thank you. Any objection?
No objection.
All right, these rules is marked. Now, Mr. Sean, I'm now approaching you and handing you what's been pre-marked for identification as State's Exhibit 7. Do you recognize this one?
Yes.
And have you had a chance to review what's on that disc?
Yes.
What's on that disc?
The 17008 camera.
And that's the front one in the middle?
Correct.
Okay. The camera footage there, it's from the 008 camera.
Yeah.
Is that fair and accurate representation of video footage from May 11th, 2024 from the camera C17008?
Yes.
And whenever you reviewed that video, was there any evidence of tampering or anything like that on the video?
No.
Was the camera, the 008 camera, was it working properly on May 11th, 2024?
Yes.
Your Honor, the state offers an evidence what's been pre-marked for identification as State's Exhibit 7, as State's Exhibit 7.
Any other defense?
No objection, Your Honor.
Be admitted as marked.
And permission to publish State's Exhibit 6, granted. All right, before we play the video, do we have the instruction on the edited recording? Sure. And your understanding of the case, the fact that the recording has been edited should not concern you in any way and must not impact the way you view and consider this evidence. Thank you. Your Honor, permission to publish State's Exhibit 7, granted. And Mr. Sean, outside of collecting those videos, why did you collect those videos?
I was contacted by the deputy who was working the case to pull the video for him. Sometimes if the deputy has a problem pulling the video for him, they'll reach out to us for assistance.
And so outside of pulling the video footage from the cameras that you were requested, did you have any other involvement in the investigation in this case?
No.
Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Cross?
Yes, Your Honor. And that there's other,
Correct.
obviously this is not the whole video.
Right.
You'd agree with me that there's other vehicles contained in the original video that show other cars with coolers in them?
I can't confirm that. I don't remember.
You haven't seen, you don't remember the video?
Every car that drove by there, I don't.
No, that's contained in the video, the original one.
I don't know. I didn't look at the video. I just pulled the video and I can't tell you how many cars had coolers in the back of them.
So this is the first time you've seen this video?
No, I've seen this video prior.
Okay, the edited one or the original one?
Both.
Okay, so I'm asking you about the original video. You would agree with me that in the original video, it's longer than this one?
Right.
And there's other vehicles coming and going in Fort DeSoto Park, correct?
Correct.
Your Honor, may we approach?
That wasn't mine.
The original video containing other trucks with coolers in the back.
That wasn't my intention. I was exporting the video. I wasn't looking for vehicles with coolers in the back of them.
Understood. I'm asking about what you remember. You testified that you saw the original video, correct? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. I'm asking you based upon the last time that you saw the original, actually, that's a better question. When was the last time you saw the original video?
It was within the last week. I don't remember.
Okay. So within that last week or so, do you remember seeing other vehicles, specifically trucks with coolers in the back, entering and exiting Fort DeSoto Park?
Not that I recall.
Okay. Now, would looking at the original video refresh your recollection?
You could look at it and see if there's
Tits and clams, that's a charity. Tits and clams, that's a charity. And get my steps in. Shari. Well, I thought it upset you. We were all like, have we upset Shari D? We've not seen you for ages. So we're like, what the fuck? What have we done to her? Then everyone said you were okay, so that was the main thing. As long as you're okay. Hope you're doing well, Shari D. How are you, my darling? Nice to see you. Sorry, I'm out of breath because I'm fucking getting my steps in. I hope you're well, my darling. Nice to see you. Never ever can you accept me. Good. Nice to hear. They all said you were good, so it's fine. Whoo.
Again, that's not what my intention was looking at the video.
And we're not talking about any intentions. I'm just asking you questions. That's all.
Yeah.
May I have a moment to confer?
Yes.
I don't.
It's a lot longer than this.
Right.
Nothing further.
Hey, can you read it right? Yes, sir. Mr. Sean, whenever you watched the video for the first time, was that in our office at the state attorney's office for trial prep? When was the first time you watched that video?
The very first time was when I pulled the video for the deputy for the case.
Okay, and when was that?
That was several months ago.
Okay, so fair to say you don't remember exactly how long that video was, because it was a long time ago?
Correct.
All right, and then whenever we sat down and prepared for today's trial, that happened over at the state attorney's office, right?
Right.
And I showed you that cut down edited copy, right?
Right.
Okay. You didn't, did you cut that video?
I did not.
Okay. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Thank you. Please sit down. You'll remain subject to recall.
Your Honor, may we approach?
What's that?
May we approach?
Yes, sir. Have a good day. Come on. We talked about it. Good.
Yes, sir.
Like we're in. All right. Call your next witness, please.
The state calls Deputy Joshua Rosenberg.
Please face the clerk, raise your right hand and take the oath. You sir, take a left word.
Introduce yourself to the jury, spelling your first and last name for the court reporter.
Yes, my name is Deputy Joshua Rosenberg. It's Joshua, and last name is Rosenberg.
With who are you employed?
Pinellas County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you been with the sheriff's office?
I have been with the Sheriff's Office coming up on 3 years now.
And
Dana, 10-6-8-3. The last few days, that's the last 3 days of the fourth day. 10-6-8-3, Dana. Oh, dramatic hack, fucking hack, bloody hack. Erin, hack, ole.
you had mentioned, you said deputy. What are your position or what are your duties as a deputy?
Routine patrol, investigations, citizen contacts.
Have you been a deputy since your employment with the beginning of your employment with the sheriff's office?
Yes, I was hired as a deputy.
Does that include, I take it that would include May 14, 2024?
Yes,
On May 14, 2024, were you on duty that day?
yes.
And in your capacity as a deputy, what were you tasked with that day?
I was tasked with investigating an animal cruelty case.
Were you dispatched to a call, or how did you come to learn that there was a case for you?
I was contacted by my, at that time, sergeant, and informed me that the case was going to become available and requested if I would like to take it.
Is that typically how case assignments work?
Typically, if a sergeant knows that you're interested in investigations, they will foster that and allow you to follow up.
And with respect to, this investigation, was there a certain location that you were dispatched to?
Yes, it was Fort DeSoto.
What was the nature of your call, of the dispatch call?
That a dog had been found decapitated floating in the mangroves inside of the bag.
Do you recall more or less what time you responded to Fort DeSoto?
Approximately 6:30 p.m.
When you arrived, what did you observe?
The dog was partially removed from the bag. We were on a access road that's not accessible to the public at that point.
When you say the bag, we've heard some testimony about at least 2 bags. Can you explain which bag you're talking about?
The bag the dog had been found inside of, it was, I believe there was a black bag and a clear bag.
What was your first task with respect to this investigation?
I was briefed by the deputy who was initially on scene about where the dog had been found. And then we were awaiting our crime scene techs to come for further photographing of the animal.
With respect to an investigation like this, where you are I guess what in that scenario, what would you call yourself? Do you have, is it like case agent? Do you have a specific title?
Case lead, case agent.
Do you have authority to direct people, for example, from a crime scene?
Yes.
And in this case, did you make any requests?
I requested that they photograph the deceased animal as well as the area that the animal had been found on the East Beach.
To your knowledge, was that completed?
Yes.
What other tasks did you have while you were there on scene, or what was your next step in your investigation?
I also viewed where the animal had been retrieved, just to have a better working knowledge of the case itself. And then we stood by waiting for crime scene to finish processing. And then I also spoke with an animal services officer, Wooten, on scene.
When you were there, did you observe Officer Wooten scan a microchip?
Yes.
From there, were you able to receive information from that microchip scan?
Yes, we were able to receive the registered owner of the dog at that time.
Upon receiving that information about the registered owner, what was your next step?
We tried to determine whether or not that owner had been in the area, and I utilized law enforcement databases to find the registered owner's vehicle.
Did it appear at that point that the vehicle had been in the area?
Yes, it had hit on cameras that we have in the area.
With that in mind, what was your next step?
Following that and speaking with animal services, it was determined that we would need to interview the registered owner.
Around what time was it determined that you would conduct an interview?
By the time CSI had finished up, it would have been later in the evening, maybe 9, 10 o'clock, somewhere around there.
Were you able to locate the suspect's home?
Yes.
And what happened? Did you go to the home?
Yes, I went to the home. We attempted to make contact with them, but he was not home at that time.
So what did you do?
We planned to return later because we had been informed at that time that he would be back later.
Did you in fact return?
Yes.
And when you returned, was he there?
He was.
What did you do when, did you make contact with him?
Yes.
Your Honor, no reproach. Please take the jury now.
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you identify that person, or did they identify themselves to you rather?
We identified them.
Okay. Do you see that person that you spoke with here in the courtroom today?
Yes, ma'am.
And could you please indicate where they are seated and by an article of clothing?
It's a gentleman wearing the blue sports jacket and the light blue undershirt.
Are they to your left or to your right in the courtroom?
They're to my right.
I'd ask that the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant.
Defense?
Stipulate that they have identified the person that they spoke with.
Okay, you record reflect the court identification.
When you spoke with this person, what was the intent as far as what did you plan to ask him?
We intended to inquire about the dog that we had found.
Can you talk about that line of questioning? What was your approach when you asked questions about this dog?
All I was trying to say was, I'm walking on the spot right now. I'm doing a Dana, just walking on the spot. But the machine you're talking about, I did use that today. I did about 4,000 steps on it today, sitting down, doing it. But yeah, no, at the minute, my legs are like lead, so just walking like Dana. Dana and Dennis walking down the street. One of those.
confirmed that it was his dog, and what had happened to the dog in general.
And when you say we confirmed, did the defendant tell you that it was his dog?
Yes, he confirmed it was his dog.
Let me back up, actually. Who was there with you? You and who else?
I had a corporal with me, Corporal Munoz.
And does Corporal Munoz speak fluent Spanish?
To my knowledge, yes.
Was he able to assist you in conducting the interview?
Yes, ma'am.
That being said, were you present the entire time when speaking with the defendant?
Yes.
And you stated that the defendant had identified the animal?
Yes.
How so?
I had taken a photograph out from Animal Services computer.
And what did the defendant identify the animal as?
His dog, and he confirmed his name to be Dexter.
What did he tell you about how he acquired the dog?
That he confirmed he had adopted it that Friday prior to my interaction with him.
Now, you say Friday prior. What time or date was this interview?
The interview was on May 15th.
And when did your investigation start again?
May 14th.
What day of the week was, what day of the week was the 14th, if you recall?
Off the top of my head, I can't say for certain.
Okay, but it was just a few days before on the, do you recall what the Friday was?
It would have been the 11th, if I recall correctly.
All right. And where did he say that he adopted that dog?
The Animal Services. We'd be looking at Arlington Road.
When you interviewed him, let me ask, actually, what address did you respond to?
I'd have to review for the exact address. I know it was in St. Petersburg.
Would your reviewing your report refresh your recollection?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, please go ahead. Once you're done refreshing your recollection, please look up. Has your memory been refreshed?
Yes.
And what address was that you responded to conduct this interview?
336766 Waymore.
So the defendant had mentioned that he had gone to Animal Services. From where did he say where he went next?
After picking up the dog?
Correct.
Not that I recall in discussing after that.
What was the next question that you had for him, or the next line of questioning you had for him after he admitted to having adopted that dog?
We inquired if he knew where it was.
And did he?
He indicated that it had been let out or ran away.
What were the details of that, of saying it was let out? When did he say that it was let out?
From my recollection, that was his initial take on it. The dog had been let out, is what he had told Animal Services. And then he then believed that it had escaped when we talked to him.
When you say let out, what was your understanding of what the defendant was saying as far as let out? Did he indicate where he meant when he was talking about letting out the dog?
That the dog had been let out by his wife.
Do you know if that was through the front door or the back door?
It wasn't disclosed.
Can you describe that property?
It's a fully fenced-in home. It's a blue house. If I remember correctly, it has a white fence. And I think if I remember correctly as well, the rear of the home has a cinder block wall, 6 foot, 5.5 feet, 6 feet tall.
Is that fence fully enclosed?
Yes.
When you arrived, were any of the fence gates open?
No.
Permission to approach the clerk?
Correct.
I'm handing defense a copy of what the state will retrieve as 8A through 8J. I'm going to approach for now with 8A through E. May I approach, Turner?
Yes.
Could you please take a look at the photos? Yes, ma'am. Do you recognize those photos? Both of them, please.
Yes.
How do you recognize those photos?
These are the home. These would be the Mr. Rodriguez's house.
Do those photos depict the area around the home as well?
Yes, there's 2 photos that show the rear as viewed from 66th Street.
Is that what those photos do? They generally and accurately depict the home and the areas around the home at the time of your investigation in May 2024?
Yes, ma'am.
At this time, the state would seek to move into evidence states A, C through 8E.
No objection. No objection.
They'll be admitted as marked.
Permission to publish?
Granted.
Starting with 8A. What are we looking at here?
That is the front of the home.
Is this the home that you responded to on the, would it have been the evening of the 14th going into the 15th, or already going into the 15th perhaps?
Initially, it was the evening going into the 15th and then early morning hours on the 15th.
Is this where you conducted the interview of the defendant?
It's where we began. We then moved to the rear of the home.
Looking at is there a fence around this home?
Yes, it's a white privacy fence,
Is the fence in the same condition, similar condition as when you observed it that day?
to my recollection, yes.
Noticing specifically, is there a gap underneath what would be, I guess, the left side of the fence where facing the photo?
Yes, it's a small gap.
Did you observe this gap in person?
Yes.
Looking at states 8B, what does this photo depict?
That's also the front, just from the other side.
Does that gate look in similar to the same condition as it was back in May 2024?
Yes.
Are you able to perceive a gap under that side of the fence?
Yes, no small gap there where the gate is.
Is this gap smaller or larger than the one on the left side of the house?
I believe this side is smaller.
Looking at 8C, is this just another angle of the house from further away?
Yes, that's the same house over there on the left with the gray truck.
Looking at 8D, what is this view?
That is the vacant lot directly adjacent to the rear of Mr. Domingo's home on 66th Street North.
Are you able to articulate where, or can you see any of Mr. Rodriguez's home in this photo?
At the top of that photo, where the concrete wall is, where it's kind of like a lightish blue gray, and then it goes into a solid gray. Just on the other side is where his home is. That would be the roof there, either to his main home or he has a finished patio area.
Is there any structure between the back of the defendant's home and 66th Street? Other than this concrete fence?
It's like a covered patio area between the back of his home. So it's his back of his home, the covered patio area, and then the concrete block wall.
Looking at states 8E, what are we seeing here?
So that is the rear of his house. You can see better from this angle the patio. That's the structure you see there, just on the other side of the white fence, and there's a small shed in the backyard.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness to the pointer?
Yes.
And be the witness stand in providing this testimony?
Yes.
Go ahead, as you could, and using that pointer, indicate things that you've been describing.
So this is the patio area right here. It's covered. It's like it's open on the front, but there is a wall here. There's like a bar area, seating area there, and then this is the shed that's in the backyard, and then the main house can be seen here where the window is.
Now, looking at this angle from the back of the home, does it appear that the fence continues to be fully enclosed around?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you notice when you were there any gaps in the fence?
None other than the ones underneath the gates up front.
All right, thank you. You can take your seat. May I approach the witness, sir?
You may.
All right, I'm now approaching with states 8F, G, H, I, and J. If you could go ahead and review those, please. Items around the defendant's property.
Yes, as they were then.
Did you take several of these photos?
Yes.
Rather, did you take these or were some of these from your body-worn camera footage?
I believe a couple from my body-worn camera and some others were captured using my agency issued cell phone.
Do these images, let's look at states 8G and F. What do those generally depict?
These are the gate that is on the left side of the home.
Does that fairly accurately depict the gate at the time of your investigation?
Yes.
And looking at 8I,
Yes.
what is that?
That is a cooler.
Is that fairly an accurately depict the cooler?
Yes, it is an accurate depiction of the cooler.
8J,
Yes.
do you recognize that as footage from your body-worn camera?
Yes.
And 8H. Is that a fair and accurate depiction of a garbage pail in at the defendant's home?
Yes, ma'am.
At this time, the state would seek to move into evidence 8. You're at F through J.
Defense?
No objection.
The admitted is marked.
Where's the published?
Granted.
Is this a closer view of that fence?
Yes, the one that's on the left side of the home if you're looking at it from front.
When you were there in person, are you able, based on your observations, are you able to approximate how large that gap is?
Approximately 4 inches at the highest point.
And looking at 8G, is that just a closer up?
Yes, it's just a closer up image.
When explaining that the dog must have gotten out, what if anything did the defendant say about that fence?
He indicated that that fence on the left side was the one that the dog had gotten out through, that small gap.
What if anything did he say about what the dog had on at the time he would have gotten out?
The defendant had explained that the dog had been neutered and that he had a cone on his head.
Did the defendant indicate that he had removed that cone since bringing the dog home?
No.
Based on his statements to you, did he still have the cone on at the time he was alleging the dog had escaped?
Objection, speculation.
Restate the question.
Did he tell you that the cone was still on at the time that the dog escaped?
One moment. Objection to speculation.
That's overruled.
Not to my recollection.
I'm sorry, so did he say he did have the cone on or did not have the cone on?
The defendant explained that the dog had a cone on its head. He didn't state whether or not it had it on during the escape.
Now, during your interview, did you ever indicate to the defendant the dog's status at that time?
Yes.
And what was that conversation like?
He inquired if the dog had what was dead.
Did he inquire after you indicated anything about the dog being dead, or was that unprompted or something else?
He inquired on his own regarding the life status of the animal.
And what was the response?
We informed him that the dog had been located deceased.
What was his reaction when he learned that?
He appeared upset, but it was not, I don't know how to explain, put it into words. It appeared disingenuous.
Objection, speculation.
Did he make?
I ask that the jury disregard that last statement.
Did he make any? Did he have any vocal reactions? Did he say anything in response? If you recall.
I remember offering the defendant a moment. I don't recall if he's speaking in Spanish with the other deputy.
What did you ask the defendant, if anything, about his whereabouts at the time that the dog was found?
We inquired in general for his activities on that Saturday, and he did specify that he had woken up and looked for the dog.
Where did he say he looked for the dog?
He stated that he looked for the dog in the neighborhood that he lived in.
Did he say how long he looked for the dog?
He did specify a time. He just said it was approximately 7 a.m.
Did he provide you a schedule or did he provide you a list of things that he did that day or an order?
He indicated that he had looked for the dog, performed what he described as unofficial Uber trips to and from Fort DeSoto, and then also stated that he was going to be fishing that day.
Did he tell you what time he woke up?
He said it was at 7 a.m.
What time? Was that time? Sorry, was that time consistent in his statement throughout?
No, it varied.
In what way?
When confronted about times that we had located his vehicle, he stated that he believed that he must have mistaken the time he had gotten up.
When you're there at the site, at the defendant's home, did you notice any vehicles?
Yes, it was a gray Nissan Frontier.
Did you ask the defendant about that vehicle?
Yes.
What did you ask him about it?
I asked him if it was his vehicle, which he confirmed it was, and I further asked if he was the only one that normally operates that vehicle, and he confirmed that as well.
Were you able to view the tag that was on the vehicle at the time that you were at the defendant's home?
Yes.
And what was that tag number?
I'd have to review for the exact if I may.
Please.
The tag would be Papa India Hotel 22.
Can you use a non-military?
PIH 22.
Thank you.
Without telling me what they said, when you were at the home, did you notice any other individuals at the home?
Yes, Mr. Domingo's wife.
Anyone else?
Not that I recall.
Permission to publish states 8H.
Granted.
Looking at 8H, what are we looking at here?
It is a garbage bag with a knot at the top.
And why was this photo captured if you know?
The bag appears similar to the one the dog had been found in.
Do you recall if you captured this photo?
I did.
What, if anything, did you do or ask to be done with that bag?
Not that bag in particular. There were other bags on scene. The original roll was collected.
And what did you do? You collected it and did what with it?
It was submitted as evidence for processing to see if it was the same as the one that the dog was located in.
When you spoke with the defendant about the adoption, did he say why he wanted a dog or why he adopted a dog?
He indicated that he wanted a guard dog.
Was it your understanding, or was there any indication as to whether this dog would live inside or outside?
Based on my conversation with the defendant, it appears the dog had the ability to go in and out, that the side back door was left open for the dog.
Once you completed your interview with the defendant, did you use the tag information that you had, the tag that you had observed? Did you take that tag and do anything, make any requests with it?
Yes, there are several toll booths in the area of Florida, so a request was made to the Florida Department of Transportation to see if their toll booth cameras had captured the defendant's vehicle.
Ultimately, did you receive a response?
I did.
Permission to approach the clerk?
And
States Exhibit A through T.
Station.
And I'm handing copies to defense counsel. You take a look at those.
Mr. Yes.
And to your knowledge, are these associated with the files that are on that flash drive that we looked at?
Yes, to my knowledge, those are for those files.
At this time, the state would seek to move into evidence based on the business record exception, the flash drive that states A10A through T, and the record certification 11A, B, and C.
Can you approach the bench with what you have in your hand?
Yes, sir.
Any objection from the defense?
Yeah, I'd like to walk you to the witness.
Permission granted. And I will take judicial notice and admit the documents that are marked 11.
Employed with the Florida Department of Transportation?
No, sir.
Did you prepare these documents?
No, sir.
Do you have any knowledge as to how they maintain and operate their records?
I do not, sir.
Now, you had a chance to see what's in that little flash drive that you were showed with your initials on it?
Yes, sir.
Without getting into the specifics of what's contained on the USB, you'd agree with me that there's going to be photographic and video evidence on there?
Yes, sir.
You've had a chance to see those videos before coming to court today?
Yes, sir.
Now, you didn't download those videos, correct?
I did, sir.
Okay, but those videos came from the Florida Department of Transportation, correct?
Correct, sir. They're sent to me.
Okay, that's up in Tallahassee, I'm assuming?
Maybe, I'm not sure, sir.
Not the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office here locally.
Correct, sir.
Okay, those videos are not stored here locally. They're stored somewhere and governed and controlled by the Florida Department of Transportation.
The originals, yes, sir.
Okay, and those are, I'm assuming, some cameras or surveillance cameras that captured something, correct?
Yes, they're mounted on toll booths.
Okay, those cameras are not operated and maintained by the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office.
Correct, sir.
They're maintained by the Florida Department of Transportation.
To my knowledge, yes, sir.
Okay. Now, along those lines, since you're not affiliated or employed by the Florida Department of Transportation, you have no way of testifying to this jury how those cameras operate and their capabilities, correct?
Correct, sir.
You don't know what systems are being used in regards to recording what's contained on those, or what's captured, if you will, on those cameras?
Correct, sir.
You don't know about the procedures employed at Florida Department of Transportation regarding the preparation, testing, operation, and security of the equipment that's associated with those cameras?
That's correct, sir.
And you're not aware of the security surrounding the system itself that obtains these videos?
No, sir.
You don't know who has access to it. You don't know where they're stored, correct?
Correct, I don't.
Based upon the voir dire, the defense objects to the entry and the admissibility of these evidence based upon the factors laid out in the silent witness theory according to the case law that I have present before me. And I can approach.
In its entirety, and that is defense objection. I'm going to already admitted 11, I believe, in its entirety, and that exhibit, the thumb drive is number what?
10, it's 10, A through T.
Admitted over the defense objection.
Okay, so the flash drive that you just looked at, does that contain both video and photos, correct?
Yes.
And were those reviewed by you after you received them from the Florida Department of Transportation?
Yes, I reviewed them on my agency issued laptop.
Do those videos and photos contain images, or do they depict the tag that you had requested?
Best evidence.
That you had requested videos and photos of?
Yes,
And I'm sorry, can you confirm that tag for me, please?
I just have to review again.
Yes. That request.
3 toll booths located down there. One as you exit St. Pete Beach going eastbound. There's another one that is as you enter the Bayway westbound from St. Petersburg, and a third that captures southbound on the Bayway prior to the bridge before Fort DeSoto's boat ramp.
I'm purchasing defense counsel with 9A, B, and C copies. Can I approach the clerk?
Dana, the Speedo man. Dana, I did it. People, I've done it. Today's steps, 12,000. Hey, Dennis reading me the post. 12,428 steps for today. I'm done. I'm done. Dana, it's on to you now, buddy. Dana normally does about 13. But fuck. PP. I have a what? I have a PP. What's a PP? Or chin? What's a PP? I don't know what a PP is. Thank you, Huckster. We're on course for the 74,400 this week. One. Oh no, it's penis coming out my chin. What the fuck? Are you reverting the other way now, Shari? Have you got penis on the mind instead of tits and clams? Is that what's happening right now? Do we have to be careful now with you?
Witness.
Yes, you may.
All right, I'm handing you a footprint marked as 9A, B, and C. Can you please take a look at these photos? And what do these depict?
Based off of my experience on patrol, these appear to depict Pinellas County.
And do those appear to have to be maps of Pinellas County specifically?
Yes.
And they fairly accurately depict Pinellas County as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Looking at some of these states, 9A, does that include any markings on the map?
Yes.
Are there red markings on that map?
Yes.
Do you know what those red markings are indicative of?
The approximate location of the toll booths in the area.
And are those accurately placed on that map?
Yes.
At this time, the state would move into evidence states 9A, B, and C as states 9A, B, and C.
Defense?
Relevance?
Is that an objection?
Yes, sir.
Response?
Would you like us to approach?
No, it's not really.
Your Honor, this is to assist the jury in the deputy's testimony, understanding the deputy's testimony.
Okay, so it's being a demonstrator, you're not moving into evidence?
No, I'm moving into, it's also relevant because it's showing the exact locations that the deputy's testifying to.
Overruled.
Permission to publish.
Granted.
Okay, looking at states 9A. Are these those dots that you mentioned?
Yes, ma'am, with a fourth included, which would be the Skyway southbound toll booth.
Would you mind indicating with the pointer the fourth that you're referencing?
Yes. That would be this one right here. That's the one that is southbound of 275 for the Skyway.
And did you request records for that fourth?
No, ma'am.
Why not?
Because it doesn't have any relevance to Fort DeSoto. Those 3 would be sufficient because there's the only way to and from Fort DeSoto.
And those, the videos and the photos that we were discussing on the flash drive states 10A through T, are those what you received in response to requesting the records for those 3 points?
Yes, those 3 points would be the plaza IDs that I requested.
At this point, the state would request to move into evidence, or excuse me, to publish 8A through T.
8A through T?
And A through T.
10A through T?
That's correct.
Let's take a quick break, please. Take the jury out. Your Honor.
Your Honor.
I'll wait on those. Page 12. And how do you recognize that?
That is a screenshot from the videos obtained through Ford Product Transportation.
Does that very accurately depict a still moment in time on that video or one of the videos?
Yes, ma'am.
Permission, or at this time, the state would move into evidence what's been pre-marked that states 12.
That's
Same prior objection, Your Honor.
very good. There'll be no objection to the rule.
Permission to publish?
Granted.
So what is this screenshot?
That is a screenshot of Mr. Rodriguez's Nissan truck going through the toll booth.
Why did you take the screenshot?
Because it depicts the truck going through the toll booth at the time that we had determined it to, and there's a cinder block. It's kind of hard to see the shadow in the back of the truck, as well as the cooler is present.
And why did you note the cooler?
The cooler was also present in other ones, but it is large enough to fit the dog.
Permission to publish what's already been admitted, 8I and 8J.
Yes, granted.
Looking at states 8I, what is this photo depict?
That is the cooler.
And where was this photo taken?
That was at Mr. Rodriguez's home.
Yeah, I know this one might be a little tough to see. We're looking at 8J. What is this a photo of?
That is a still of my body-worn camera from the night of the interview. Mr. Rodriguez showing the bed of his truck.
And why did you take a screenshot of that body worn of the bed of the truck?
To depict the lack of cinder block in it.
The cooler, where was that found? Where in the home was that found?
That is on the back patio area that I described previously.
Correction at this time, Your Honor, to every time published states 10A through T.
Granted.
Deputy Rosenberg, are you able to see those file names from where you are?
Yes, ma'am.
And are these file names as they came to, as the files came to you, are they still named the exact same way?
Yes, after the state's exhibits there, that would be the name that they were given to me as.
And what are you able to tell from the file name?
You're able to tell the plaza ID, which is the first group of numbers on the left, and then the location of said plaza following that.
What about those numbers towards the end?
That would be the date and time for those plazas.
Do you know what time zone that time is listed in?
I believe that's the UTC time.
So specifically looking at the file name only?
Oh, I'm sorry, on the file name only, that would be the Eastern Standard or Eastern EDT time. Eastern
And
Daylight
what time is indicated on this file name?
time. Which one are you asking about, Council?
Sorry, this one. This is states 10A.
If I can just get that angle.
Your Honor, what is it saying?
Yes.
Thank you. $7:30 in the morning.
Now you mentioned UTC. Is there a reason you mentioned UTC?
Some of the files depict that it shows on the top of the video, it shows a UTC time instead of Eastern Standard Time.
Is that going to be on those photo files?
But if I recall correctly, yes.
Do you know the difference between Eastern Standard Time and UTC?
It is -4 hours for Eastern Standard and -5 for Eastern Daylight Time.
Is that just depending on the time of year?
Yes.
Publishing states 10A. And I'm pausing the clip at 0.3 seconds. Or 3 seconds, I suppose. What do we see here?
That'd be Mr. Domingo's Nissan in the far right of the video.
And what is the location of this toll booth?
This plaza is as you exit St. Pete Beach, driving eastbound on the Bayway.
So would this be towards or away from Fort Soto?
It'd be in the direction of Fort Soto.
Looking at states exhibit B, the folder name states B and C. Based on the name, can you tell what those videos are?
Those are from that same angle, the eastbound as you leave St. Pete Beach.
Would it be the same angle?
Not the same angle, same location of the toll booth.
Do the toll booths, to your knowledge, have multiple cameras?
Yes.
Publishing states exhibit 10D. Based on the name, are you able to determine what camera this is coming from?
That's the westbound toll booth as you enter the Bayway from St. Petersburg.
And I misspoke, I apologize. Not what camera, but rather which toll booth. Now, is this the same where there's multiple cameras?
Yes, each toll booth has multiple cameras.
Publishing states 10D. And I pause my clip at approximately 5 seconds. Using your pointer, can you indicate where, if at all, we see the defense vehicle?
Yes, ma'am. Can I stand here?
Yes, sir.
It's over here on the left side of the screen.
And what if anything is in the bed of the truck?
You can see from this angle that these aforementioned coolers in that vehicle.
And are you able to tell based on the file name the time of this clip?
It looks like it would have been 8:33 a.m. 25 seconds, 8:33 a.m. 32 seconds.
Looking at the file names for exhibit E and F, are those additional files just from a different angle? Or
Yeah.
different, additional views?
Yes, from the same toll booth.
Looking at states exhibit G, are you able to tell where these files are from, what location?
That is the southbound toll booth on the Bayway as it pertains to Fort DeSoto, so right prior to the bridge that goes towards the boat ramp.
And what time are these recorded at?
That one starts at 7 a.m. 38 minutes and 1 second and ends at 7 a.m. 38 minutes and 8 seconds.
And publishing states 10G. Pausing the video at 6 seconds. What do you notice in what's in the image there?
It's Mr. Rodriguez's vehicle. It appears to be occupied one time. And there is the cinder block there and blue on that side.
Now you mentioned the vehicle being occupied. I missed the last part. Occupied what?
By one person.
And why is that significant if it is?
Objection, relevance, historical opinion.
Did Mr. Domingo, did Mr. Rodriguez provide statements about giving a ride to somebody to Fort Soto?
Yes, ma'am.
Did he indicate there were multiple people in the vehicle?
Yes.
Does that image indicate that there were multiple people in the vehicle?
From what I can tell, no.
And looking at H and I, are those also just additional angles from that same location?
Yes.
H and I.
Yep.
And then looking at State's Exhibit J, are you able to tell the location from the name of this file?
That is the southbound location again.
Publishing States 10J. And what are we seeing here?
Mr. Rodriguez's vehicle again with the cinder block, fishing pole, and cooler.
What time is this at?
8:42 it starts at in 6 seconds and ends at 8:42 in 13 seconds.
States K and L, are those additional angles of the same camera or the same toll booth?
Yes.
Publishing States Exhibit M. What is States Exhibit M showing?
That's a still shot from that same toll booth.
Now, up at the top, what is that? Is there like a white bar there?
Yeah, so the still image has a timestamp up there. That's the UTC time I had mentioned.
And is this what's provided, that white block? Is that how these photos arrived to you with that timestamp?
Yes, ma'am.
Are these additional photos from the same toll booth plazas? States Exhibit N and O.
And then over from southbound, yes.
Looking at States Exhibit P. What are we seeing here?
We have the vehicle in question with the license plate, speed cooler, and fishing bowl.
And you said the license plate, is this the license plate that you observed at the house?
Yes, it's the one I observed and requested.
Does this also have a timestamp up top?
Yes, in the same location.
Do all the still photos include a timestamp?
To my knowledge, yes, unless they were screenshot by me and uploaded.
Did you also review any, are you aware of any cameras that the sheriff's office maintains near Fort DeSoto? You can have a seat outside.
Yes, we have cameras that capture entrance to the Fort DeSoto. There's an old toll booth there.
Now, did you take a look at those?
Yes, I viewed those videos.
And in analyzing those videos and taking a look at the ones that we just observed along with the photos, what, if any, timeline were you able to establish?
We did determine a timeline for Mr. Domingo's vehicle being in the area that day.
And can you describe that in more detail, please?
May I review my report?
Please go ahead.
We determined there were two separate trips made down.
Can you explain those trips?
There was one at approximately 7:30. We did not get any leave time for that from those toll booths, but there was another one later in the morning.
What do you mean you didn't get any leave time?
There was no time from the camera didn't capture an accident.
Do you have any knowledge of why that would be?
To be honest, no.
And what about the second trip that you mentioned?
There was an additional trip shortly thereafter, and at that point, there was a time where he was observed on the FDOT camera and then exiting on the park camera.
When you say FDOT, are you referring to Florida Department of Transportation?
Yes.
Now, based on your travel to the defendant's home and your travel to Fort DeSoto, are you aware of how long it takes to drive from the defendant's home to Fort DeSoto, more or less?
Traffic depending could be anywhere from 30 to 40 minutes, not longer.
With that being said, approximately at what time would the defendant have had to leave his home to be at the toll booth, at the St. Pete Beach toll booth, assuming that he had come directly from his home?
Objection, speculation, facts not evidence.
Sometime before 7 a.m.
And what time did the defendant indicate that he was awake that day?
At 7 a.m.
And at what time did the defendant indicate that he was looking for the dog?
After he woke up.
A moment to confirm.
Yeah.
No further questions at this time.
Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Deputy.
Good afternoon, sir.
This was your first aggravated animal cruelty investigation, correct?
Yes, sir.
You've never done one of these before?
Not prior to this, no, sir.
Now, for the last maybe 15, 20 minutes, we had been looking at state's exhibit with timestamps from the Florida Department of Transportation, correct?
Yes, sir.
You'd agree with me that the actual videos from the Florida Department of Transportation have their own timestamps up top,
Correct, sir.
and that's on the actual video
On the photos there.
photographs, correct?
Yes.
And there's timestamps on the actual file names that you were asked to reference and point to.
Yes.
Now, you agree with me that you have no knowledge as to the accuracy or reliability of those timestamps from the Florida Department of Transportation since you're not affiliated, correct?
Correct, sir.
And your entire timeline and your approximations are based upon those timestamps.
As well as other timestamps from other cameras.
Now, the timestamps on the actual files, did you make those timestamps?
On the files that were provided?
Yes, sir.
No, sir.
Who did?
It would have been from the downloaded file from Florida Department of Transportation.
So Florida Department of Transportation made the files with the timestamps on the files, and then on the actual still shots with the timestamp.
Correct, sir.
And you can't testify to this jury as to whether that's accurate or not.
That's correct.
Let the record reflect, I'm showing you what has already been entered into evidence that states 9A. Bear with me, baby. You still have that pointer?
Yes.
Point out where Fort DeSoto Beach is.
There are two beaches. There's the West Beach and the East Beach.
Point where the Skyway Bridge is.
Approximately.
Do you know what that body of water is called that goes under the Skyway Bridge and brushes up against the east tip of Fort DeSoto Beach?
Tampa Bay.
Now you can have a seat.
Thanks, sir.
Do you do any fishing?
Occasional.
You agree with me that there's tides coming in and out of that bay?
To my knowledge, yes.
Now, you testified on direct. You didn't need to see any other toll booth cameras because all you needed to focus on was on Fort DeSoto Beach, correct? The entrance of Fort DeSoto Park.
Correct.
Did you take into account in your investigation that the bag found in this case may have floated from somewhere else?
No, sir.
That didn't even cross your mind.
No, sir.
And that's why you didn't take a look at the toll booth at the Skyway Bridge
Correct, sir.
to see if there was any trucks with coolers in their truck, in the bed of their truck.
Correct.
So we don't know what those videos show, if anything.
Correct.
Now, may I approach the screen, Your Honor?
Yes.
Actually, I'm going to point the line. This is a little easier. Let the record reflect, I'm pointing to the top right, most red dot in this case. What am I pointing at?
That's the approximate location of the westbound toll booth.
And that leads it to where?
That is the Bayway area, so it's going towards St. Pete Beach.
Now, that's I see Bayway Isles next to that dot. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. Now, is there a beach or a place where you could dock off or fish around that blue body of water where we see Bayway Isles?
There are private docks in that area, to my knowledge, but I've never, that's St. Pete Police jurisdiction, so I don't.
When you mean private dock, you mean homes? Or what do you mean by that?
There's homes and condos along the Bayway, yes.
But that's fronting the water.
Yes.
Did you do any neighborhood survey on those private docks?
No.
You had a conversation with my client, correct?
Yes.
During that conversation, he had told you that he doesn't formally do Uber, but he does give rides to people.
Yes, sir.
He also told you that he had 3 people in the back of his truck that asked him to bring him to Fort DeSoto.
Please state the question one more time. I hear one.
Your Honor, I asked him if it was true that the defendant had told him that he had told him that he had given rides to 3 people in the bed of the in the back of his truck to Fort DeSoto Park.
And the objections to hearsay.
Hearsay based on facts, not on evidence.
Overruled objection.
I would need you to review my report to confirm that.
Would look at your report, refresh your recollection?
Yes, sir.
I want to have you take a look at your report, look up at me. That's going to let me know that your memory's been refreshed, and I'll proceed to ask you.
Thank you, sir.
You have a chance to review it?
Yes, sir.
He did in fact tell you that he had given a ride to 3 people to Fort Soda Park that day.
Yes, sir.
Bless you. Now, with the face graciousness in they pull up exhibit 9, I believe it's on there. 10. I apologize. On stipulation, we have still shots of photographs from prior admitted videos. Based upon stipulation, the parties will enter this as offense 1.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right, and what is it?
Still photographs.
Has it been marked by the clerk?
I can mark them, but no, it has not been
How
marked.
many of them are there?
I'm just going to introduce one.
All right,
You
so
have any
please
issues?
hand whatever you want to the clerk for her to put an exhibit tab on it.
Video where it showed, now you'd agree with me that that doesn't allow you to see into the back of the truck, correct?
Correct, sir.
So there could have been people in the back of the truck that you weren't able to see.
It's possible, yes, sir.
Right, permission to publish the defendant's one.
Granted.
You see a fishing pole sticking out of the bed of his truck.
Yes, sir.
Did you take that into consideration during your investigation?
That he went fishing? No, sir.
Out by your sergeant asking if you want to be a part of this case, correct?
Yes, sir.
You answered in the affirmative.
Yes, sir.
The first thing that you do is you go out to the scene.
Yes, sir.
You get there, there's already a deputy there from the sheriff's office.
Correct, sir.
There's a park ranger.
Who's that animal service representative there?
Animal services representative. Is there anybody else that you come into contact with?
My sergeant.
How long were you there at the scene?
I don't recall off the top of my head. It would have been at least an hour.
You said you got there around like 6:30 in the evening.
That's when I received the call at 6:30.
Do you know what time you actually got to Fort DeSoto Park, that east tip area?
It would have been recorded with our call dispatch when I arrived on scene, but I don't recall off the top of my head.
Did you conduct any interviews at the scene?
No, sir.
So that's around an hour after 6:30ish,
Somewhere around there, yes.
and you spent about an hour there.
Approximately, maybe it could have been longer. I don't know. CSI took.
Do you know what time you left?
I don't recall. No.
What time did you shift end that day?
7 a.m. the next day.
What did you do after that?
After my shift was over,
No, sir. After you left the scene?
we would have attempted at that point to interview the client.
Okay. Did you make an attempt?
Yes.
And what time was that?
Approximately 10 o'clock, 10 or 11, somewhere around there.
In the evening?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's the first time you went to the house?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. When was the second time you went to the house?
It would have been the next, like shortly after midnight, so it would have been the next day, technically.
You can't tell us what time that was?
It would have been recorded on my body cam, but I believe it was shortly after midnight.
Now, is that the same time that you testified to regarding your conversation with my client?
The interview that preceded, yes. would have been around there.
So it would have been 1, 2 o'clock in the morning?
Yes, sir.
And you're with Deputy Munoz, who was helping you translate?
Yes, sir.
You don't speak Spanish?
I speak a little, but not fluent.
Un poquito?
Un poquito.
You go inside the home?
I believe at some point we did, yes.
Spotless, it's clean.
Yes.
I believe you actually made mention of it earlier, that it's immaculate.
Yes.
You're shown out in the back?
Yes, he liked us in the backyard.
We saw the pictures of the patio in the backyard. You notice cooler?
Yes.
Okay, did you ask for it to be opened?
Yes.
What'd you see when it was opened?
It had beer and ice in it.
Okay, did it smell funny?
No.
Did it smell like anything rotten?
No, sir.
Did you attempt to smell it?
Not that I recall.
You made mention that the cooler must have been big enough to fit the dog.
Approximately, yes.
I'm sure you got a tape measure and you measured the cooler.
No, sir.
Okay. You never tape measured the dog either?
I did not, sir, no.
Did you take the cooler into evidence?
No, sir.
But you did take a trash bag, a roll of trash bags into evidence.
Yes, it was provided.
Okay, and those were fresh trash bags,
Yes.
still in the roll.
Yes.
Did they appear like any special type of trash bag or something that anybody could get at a Publix or Walmart?
Your typical clear trash bag.
But you didn't take the cooler?
No, sir.
Okay. You didn't swab it for any DNA?
No, sir.
You didn't swab it for any dog particles?
Correct, sir.
That would have been important. No?
It's a possibility, sir.
I'm not asking if it's possible. I'm asking if it was important.
If there were items observed to be relevant, yes.
There's no touch DNA swabs that was taken from the outside or inside of the cooler, correct?
Correct, sir.
My client was cordial to you?
Yes, sir.
Now, I believe you made mention that my client seemed, I believe your word, shocked, surprised, and when you told him that the dog had died?
Yes.
Okay. He appeared shocked.
Yes.
And you gave your opinion as to what you believe to be genuine or not genuine. You remember that?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
And this was the conversation that you were having him at around 2:00 in the morning?
Yes.
You have a chance to speak with my client, correct?
Yes, sir.
What did you do after that conversation?
After speaking with your client,
Yes, sir.
a determination was made on whether or not there was going to be an arrest.
Okay. Did you arrest him?
Yes, sir.
Now, you made the arrest and you hadn't seen any surveillance, correct?
I had observed images from another camera system.
And that was before you spoke with him?
Yes, sir.
You didn't see any other cameras?
Just the one displayed this photo there.
You didn't determine cause of death when you arrested my client, correct?
Correct.
That's important in a case like this?
It could be.
It could be.
Yes.
You weren't able to determine cruelty was inflicted on the dog by my client?
Objection. Calls for the question, that's for the jury.
So your entire investigation was you go to East Tip, correct?
Correct.
You meet with a deputy that got there first, you're with your sergeant and animal control, correct?
Yes, sir.
After that, you review photographs of the toll booths?
Not of the toll booths, but another camera system.
Okay, and then you go speak to my client.
After speaking with everybody on scene there, yes.
You didn't do anything else
Correct.
regarding your investigation?
Correct.
Now, you'd agree with me, your investigation didn't stop at the arrest, correct?
Correct.
You've done additional stuff.
Yes, sir.
Like what?
Like the Florida Department of Transportation camera request to further put into place the finding.
Did you speak with family members?
I attempted to.
Okay. Did you inquire about them?
I inquired at one residence and they refused to speak to us.
Who was that?
I would have to review my report to see what day that was.
We'll get there. Have you ever seen a gentleman by the name of Fermin Rodriguez, Domingo's brother?
I don't recall, sir.
You mentioned that the bag was collected and sent for testing.
Yes, sir.
Did anything come of it?
I'm not sure, sir. It would have been tested by our CSI folks.
Obviously, I'm sure if there was something you would know, correct?
They would have supplemented my report, yes.
And there's been no supplement to your report.
To my knowledge, no.
And there was nothing found in my client's home that would be relevant to this case? Well, I'll withdraw the question. Did you obtain or take with you any articles or material found at my client's home other than the roll of trash bag that we've been talking about?
To my recollection, no, sir.
You handled the trash bag?
Yes, sir.
Did you use gloves when you grabbed it?
I'd have to review my camera to see if I did not recall.
But it's either one or the other. You either had your gloves on or you didn't.
Correct.
But you ended up grabbing them regardless.
Yes, sir.
When you arrived on the scene, the body of the dog was already taken from the water?
Yes, sir.
What time does Fort DeSoto Park open?
It opens at sunrise.
You've seen multiple videos regarding the toll booth, the entrance and the exit of the toll booths for Fort DeSoto Park?
Yes, yes, sir.
You'd agree with me that there's other vehicles?
Yes, sir.
In that video?
Yes, sir.
Was there any attempt to identify the license plates of those vehicles and inquire about those individuals?
No, sir.
Why not?
It wasn't relevant to the investigation.
Wasn't relevant to Domingo Rodriguez's investigation, correct?
Correct.
Now, do you have any, in your investigation, did you discover any evidence that my client was the actual individual that inflicted harm on this dog?
Directly, no, sir.
How about indirectly?
Objection. Comment on the evidence.
No, sir.
So no direct and no indirect?
Correct.
Nothing further?
Any redirect again?
Weeks and days of the week. I think you had mentioned that May 11th might have been a Friday. Is it possible that that was a Saturday?
Yes.
Objection leading.
Now, did you request, when you made your request for videos, specific dates and times?
Yes.
Do you have any reason to believe that the videos that you received were not those dates and were not for those timeframes?
No, ma'am.
Was the lighting, so was it daylight or nighttime when you expected it to be in those videos?
Yes, it appeared.
Was there any indication that the defendant or his vehicle was coming from or through from the south in a way that would lead him to go through the Skyway?
No.
Or what about the opposite, heading south through the Skyway?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Was there any reason to request that fourth toll booth camera footage?
No.
In fact, what was the defendant's statement as far as where he came from when going to and from Fort DeSoto?
He admitted to being down.
But did he come from somewhere?
From his home.
And his home, to be clear, is nowhere near the Skyway, correct?
Correct.
Now, did your investigation include canvassing for cameras in the neighborhood?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you go to multiple neighborhoods or just one?
Just the one around the other defense address.
Did you request that other deputies respond to other locations
Yes.
to canvass for cameras?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you speak with witnesses during your canvass?
By phone, if I remember correctly.
Did you attempt to make contact with the neighbors?
Yes.
How so?
Knocking on their door, unfortunately, 2:00 in the morning for night shifts. We usually don't get any answers.
And if they don't answer, is there something that you do in order to see if they will reach out?
We leave a business card in case not asking them to call.
And if they do call back, do you document that?
Yes.
Now, defense counsel had asked you about the DNA on the cooler, about testing for it. At the time that you learn of the cooler, how many days is that after the dog is adopted?
Approximately 3.
How many days is that after? Would that make it about 2.5 days from the time that the dog is reported or is supposedly missing to learning about the cooler's relevance?
Yes.
At that point, is there any concern as far as the viability, just based on your training and experience, of DNA samples from an object that's been sitting for several days?
Yes, based on the timeline and also the fact that the cooler was found to be stored outside and stored when it was transported.
Proper opinion.
Overruled.
Because it was stored outside, and my training experience is that is anything on the outside of the cooler is not applicable.
And what, if anything, did the contents of the cooler at the time that you saw it have an effect on your decision to request or to not request touch DNA samples?
Because the cooler had been used since, there was nothing that could have been obtained, in my opinion.
Did your investigation also include obtaining and seeking and obtaining search warrants in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
Multiple or just one?
I believe there were 4.
Did you have any reason to believe that any other vehicle passing through the toll booth cameras or any other cameras in the area had Domingo's dead dog, Mr. Rodriguez's dead dog, in the cooler?
No,
Did that have any effect on your looking or lack thereof in other people's coolers?
it wasn't relevant for us.
A moment to confer.
Yeah.
No further questions.
You may call him in your case in chief if you wish to do so.
Yes, sir.
Court, counsel. Good afternoon, Dr. Perlman.
Good afternoon.
Dr. Perlman, can you please turn and introduce yourself to the members of the jury and spell your name for the record?
Sure. I'm Elizabeth Perlman, Elizabeth, P as in Peter, Earlman.
All right. Now, Dr. Perlman, what do you do for work?
I'm a forensic veterinarian.
Is that strictly your area of practice right now as a forensic veterinarian?
Yes.
Can you explain to the members of the jury what a forensic veterinarian does?
Sure. So as a forensic veterinarian, I essentially serve my veterinary knowledge and medical capacity in assessing animals and triaging them in anticipation or potential anticipation of legal court cases. So it's almost as a bridge between the legal system and what might be anticipated in need of court, paralleled with my utilization of veterinary medicine, my knowledge from graduating vet school.
And you talked about graduating from vet school. Can you please explain and tell the members of the jury your background, your training experience, and where you went to school?
Sure. I went to Purdue University up in Indiana. I graduated in 2016. I worked as an emergency veterinarian in Indianapolis for a year, and then I worked for the Houston SPCA, which is a large nonprofit animal shelter in Houston City, as a staff veterinarian, and I predominantly took on their animal cruelty investigation cases as a forensic veterinarian. I then worked for a few months up in New York City under the ASPCA. I applied for and was accepted for the position I'm currently in. And I worked in New York City, the 5 boroughs, for several months before transferring down to Gainesville, Florida, where I've been since 2018.
Thank you. Now, in addition to your prior knowledge, training, and experience as a forensic veterinarian, are you responsible for keeping up with continuing education?
Absolutely.
And are you currently up to date on all of your certifications?
Yes.
When was the last time you went and attended a conference or something to get those credits and credentials?
September of last year, I went to the International Veterinary Emergency Conference.
And in the time around March or May of 2024, were you up to date on all your credentials?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. I want to talk about your experience specifically relating to this case. Now, what is your involvement in this case?
Sure. I was requested for assistance in regards to a dog that was found without a head by the sheriff's office, I believe the sheriff's office. And then we worked immediately. So I believe I was contacted on 5/21/2024. And the agency reached out. We offer our services at the ASPCA's. We offer free veterinary forensic support throughout the nation. And so part of that was they reached out because they were aware of our program where we provide free necropsies or autopsies. I anticipate we'll get into that later. And so part of that was they just had found this body or were notified about this body, and they were interested in pursuing a forensic necropsy for the remains of the animal that was found.
Okay. So just to kind of break down what is it that you said. So there was a headless dog that was found out in Fort DeSoto.
Correct.
And at some point you were contacted about conducting, you said, a necropsy?
Correct.
Can you explain to the members of the jury what a necropsy is?
Sure. A necropsy is essentially an autopsy. So it's a very thorough examination of a deceased animal's remains, often looking for underlying disease process, suspicious cause of death, a litany of items as to why, like what caused the animal's death, especially if there's something that is suspicious to have occurred.
And the animal in this case, were you able to identify the animal's name?
Yes.
What was the animal's name?
Dexter.
Your Honor, permission to publish what's already in evidence as State's Exhibit 5B.
What is that?
That is, I think, the first court. Yes.
Yes, permission granted.
Now, Dr. Perlman, I'm going to put up on the screen a picture of that headless dog. Sure. And ask if you recognize
it. Turn away. If you don't want to see the headless dog, turn away. Just giving you a 5-second warning. 5, 4, 3, 2 Mississippi, 1 Erenhaki, and 0.
Do you recognize that dog?
Yes.
Is that the dog that you conducted a necropsy on in this case?
It is.
Is that Dexter?
Yes.
Now, I want to talk about the process of the necropsy and the procedures that you go through with the necropsy. Can you explain the process of that examination?
Sure. So there's a standard to methodically perform a necropsy, and that entails starting with the head. Usually we have the oral cavity, the nose, working our way back through the dental cavity or the teeth, looking in the ears. It's essentially an in-depth way of evaluating the animal externally. And so I work my way usually from nose to tail. and assessing for any abrasions or scratch marks or ligature marks or gunshot wounds or any type of injury that could be evidenced, even fleas or external parasites. And then after I do the external examination, which is written documentation as well as photographic documentation, I'll then transfer the animal into our x-ray room where full body x-rays are obtained. So we will take x-rays to look for any broken bones, any foreign material, any additional information which might help it once we open up the body. So after we take those x-rays, they come back into our necropsy room, which is a designated secured laboratory space. And once I'm in there, I will go ahead and remove the pelt, which is essentially the skin. So if you think of a cowhide, I literally will reflect back all of that skin to look for any type of injury. So in humans, we're able to see bruising on the skin, but with animals, they have that fur that overlays it, which obstructs any potential injury, can potentially obstruct injury or bruising patterns. So we remove that whole pelt or that whole skin, and then I will go ahead and open them up internally to assess their internal organs individually.
Okay, so just again, a lot of information. I'm going to break it down. So the first part of your examination is the exterior examination.
Correct.
With the skin on, right?
Yes.
And normally you go from nose to tail. In this case, you went from neck to tail.
Correct.
After that, you'll do the x-rays. Well, you'll send the animal to do the x-rays. Is that right?
Yes.
Do you yourself do the x-rays?
I do as well.
Okay. And so the x-rays are, like normal, trying to find broken bones, right?
Correct.
And then after that, you'll skin the animal, look for other evidence of injuries because it's kind of hard to see with the fur and the skin on, right?
Correct.
And then after that, you'll do the internal examination.
Yes.
Okay. As a result of and you followed that process in this case?
Absolutely.
Now, as a result of your examination, did you reach any opinions in this case regarding Dexter?
Yes.
Was that opinion based off of sufficient facts or data from your examination?
Yes.
Are there reliable principles and methods associated with this type of examination?
Absolutely.
And did you apply those principles and methods reliably in this case?
Yes.
I want to ask you about your opinions on this case now.
Objection, what year?
I'm sorry?
What year?
Would like an opportunity to identify the witness prior to the opinion testimony?
I have outside the presence of the jury.
What's that?
I have.
No, I'm saying you're asking right now to whether the witness prior to her rendering opinion testimony?
Before her opinion comes out.
Okay, take the jury out, please, so you can find appropriate.
Sure.
Your hands up there.
Have you conducted other necropsies?
So I'm going to do the Zachary Hughes closings after this. It's like 2 hours, so might as well do it tonight. It's out the way because tomorrow then I can do day 2 of this trial and day 3 of this trial then because it'll be a long day otherwise. So I'll do that. Zoom tomorrow. So I'll do that tonight. We'll do Zachary Hughes closings tonight.
Before?
Yes.
About how many have you conducted?
Over 100.
And in those prior necropsies, what sort of data do you rely on whenever you reach opinions in those cases?
Sure. My gross findings, and what I mean is visually through trainings that I've undergone, I'm able to grossly identify what's normal and abnormal. If there's abnormal tissues, I will collect samples of them and submit the first something called histopathology, which is microscopic analysis of tissue under the microscope that a veterinarian who's board certified to look under a microscope specifically at the architecture of the tissue will then render a professional opinion about that abnormality. I also rely on the x-rays. So radiologists, board certified veterinary radiologists, they will review images of an x-ray and then render their opinion. And I will also use that to render my opinion. It will influence my opinion. I also will utilize toxicology. There are a variety of veterinary professions and specialties that I will utilize depending on the case that's needed for confirmation of illness or disease that's present.
Okay, and so in this case, you mentioned histopathology.
Correct.
And you said it was the microscopic organisms. Did you conduct a histopathology in this case?
I did not.
And why not?
The body was severely decomposed. And so what happens is at the time of death, there is immediate changes to any body, whether it's human or animal, that it starts a cascade of decomposition, essentially rotting. And so the first stage that happens is the cells within the body start decaying themselves and they kind of burst open and we call it lysis, where they will degrade very quickly and over time continue to degrade. And in simultaneous effort with that degradation of those cells, we also have putrefaction and bacterial proliferation. So you and I normally have guts and dogs normally have bacterial biomes and bacteria within your gut system that will proliferate at a higher rate than when an animal is deceased versus when they're alive.
And so the histopathology in this case, can you explain specifically the reason why you did not send a sample for histopathology in this case?
So Dexter was at advanced stage of decomposition. On the photo that was shown a few minutes ago, he's very, very bloated. So normally Dexter, at least in the pre-adoption photo that was sent along with his medical record, he's very skinny and doesn't look obese, but in that photo, he looks almost obese because of bacterial proliferation that causes him to get distend with gas. When I touched his skin, it would just slough. So that means like the hair and the top layer of fur on his skin would just slide off if I touched it. Normally there are attachments within the skin, but at that stage of decomposition, it's literally just sliding off, if that makes sense. So with that advanced stage of decomposition, there's not much benefit to looking under a microscope. In my experience, that would come back as inconclusive, or the pathologist would not be able to render opinion because they look under there and all they see is bacteria and mush, as opposed to the structure, which is completely degraded.
Okay. So outside of that, submitting the tissue sample for the histopathology, in this case, did you follow the same procedures that you normally would for those other prior over 100 necropsies?
Yes.
And then based on conducting your examination in this case, did you reach an opinion?
Yes.
Now I want to talk about your opinion in this case. Were you able to reach an opinion about Dexter's cause of death in this case?
I reached the opinion that without the head, I'm unable to determine cause of death. I can tell you that he was decapitated by a human, or his head was completely removed by a human. It wasn't by an animal. And I'm unable to draw a determination that he was alive or deceased at the time of decapitation.
Okay, so I just want to back that up a little bit and make sure that your testimony is clear. So just to be clear, were you able to determine the cause of death?
No, not without the head.
And that's my follow-up question. Whenever you're conducting a necropsy, is it important for you to have the whole animal in front of you?
Absolutely.
And so without having the head, how does that hinder your ability to reach a determination or an opinion on the cause of death in this case?
Sure. So part of the necropsy, and again, we start at the nose and generally speaking, start at the nose and work our way to the tail. There are abnormalities that we can find that could potentially be in the head that would indicate what the cause of death. In evaluating his body of what was present, so the neck and lower down to the tail, there was no overt signs of death. There was no masses, there was no cardiac disease, like there were no heartworms present, there was no foreign body, like sometimes younger dogs might eat foreign material and it physically blocks their digestive system and they die from that. There was no obvious cause of death that was grossly visible with me looking at the dog and my experience in the last 10 plus years of being a veterinarian to be able to identify what killed this dog.
Okay. So lacking the head, let's say hypothetically that you did have Dexter's head and there's a gunshot wound through his brain. Would that change your opinion on potentially his cause of death?
Absolutely.
Objection? Outside the scope for opinion improper. Overruled.
So would that change your opinion on his cause of death potentially?
Absolutely.
And is that because you have the whole picture in front of you, not just from the neck down?
Yes.
Similar line of questioning. If there was blunt force trauma to Dexter's head and you had that in front of you, would that help you determine the cause of death?
Absolutely.
But because you don't have the head, you can't see if there's blunt force trauma, you can't determine the cause of death. Is that fair to say?
That is correct.
I want to talk now about Dexter's, the examination that you actually did. Whenever you conducted the examination, I know you said the external examination and the x-rays. That's what I'm going to kind of group those together. Whenever you did that examination on Dexter, did you find any evidence of broken bones?
No.
Did you find any evidence of bruising on Dexter's body?
Not that I could grossly look. No.
Outside of the neck, did you see any lacerations or cuts on Dexter's body?
No.
Did it look like he had been hit by a car?
No.
All things being the same, let's pretend that Dexter did have a head. Would he have died from any of these, broken bones or anything that was on the external examination that you conducted?
If his head had been there and been normal, if he were hit by a car, there were findings that weren't present on Dexter that I would anticipate to see if he had been hit by a car and killed. That includes road rash or abrasion, so similar to when you're riding a bike and you skin your knee on asphalt. There was no evidence of any external injury associated with road rash. There were no broken bones, so there's a study that published that looked at the number one broken bone in dogs with motor vehicle accidents. There were no broken bones. If there were abdominal fluid like blood, like say he'd been hit in his spleen, an organ that stores blood, ruptured from being hit by a strong car, I would expect blood in the abdomen or the belly, and I didn't see any of that. And the same goes for the chest. If there had been severe trauma to the chest, like a blunt force trauma from hit by a car, I would anticipate to see maybe some lung bruising and fluid in the chest, and I didn't see any of that.
And just to be clear, specifically with regards to evidence of him potentially getting hit by a car, did you see any evidence that would indicate that he got hit by a vehicle?
None whatsoever.
Okay. Now I want to kind of shift gears and talk now about the internal examination. What organs do you look at internally whenever you're conducting that internal investigation?
On a dog, when I have the head, I will evaluate everything from the internal oral cavity. I remove something called the pluck, and it goes from the tongue all the way down to the trachea or the windpipe, all the way down to the heart and the lungs, and it comes out as one piece, and so I'll evaluate that. Additionally, I will evaluate the brain, like remove the skull cap and evaluate the brain. But given that we don't have that for Dexter's case, I evaluated everything that was present. So right about here on the neck, I was able to remove the windpipe and evaluate that. All the way down to the heart and the lungs. The next step that I'll do is look through the abdominal or belly organs. So I looked through the liver, the stomach, the pancreas, the kidneys, the penis even, the bladder, any internal, the adrenal glands, anything internal, all of those organs were evaluated.
Okay, and whenever, just generally, whenever you're looking at each of those organs, what sort of things are you looking for?
There's a variety of abnormalities that we can look for the gastrointestinal tract, or for the stomach and the intestinal tract, particularly with younger dogs. I'll look for foreign material within that. So I will open up the stomach, I will open up the intestines and see if there's anything that dog could have eaten, whether it's rat poison, whether it's string or part of a stuffy toy or a chew kennel that obstructed or injured the intestinal tract. For the liver, I will evaluate it for any type of abscess or infection that might be going on. So each organ has veterinarians are trained to identify common abnormalities, like through our veterinary school, plus our training that we undergo for necropsy. And so I evaluated each of those organs in anticipation of looking through that mental checklist that I have of abnormalities.
And so of those abnormalities, do you look for evidence of diseases?
Yes.
And do you look for evidence of masses?
Yes.
Whenever we're talking about masses, what do you mean by masses?
I mean, masses can be benign, where it's not necessarily spreading anywhere. It's just kind of an incidental finding, and they can be all the way back to, up to a malignant tumor, which is a cancer that spreads throughout the body. And there was no evidence of either.
And then I know you were talking about stuff in like the GI tract. Is that primarily where you look for obstructions?
For obstructions, I look more, yes, is the stomach all the way down to the intestines, all the way down to the colon. I go through the whole gastrointestinal or GI system.
Okay. Now, I want to go piece by piece with those organs. So I'm going to start with the heart. Did you examine Dexter's heart?
I did.
And whenever you were examining Dexter's heart, did you find any evidence of disease?
None.
Did you find any evidence of any masses on Dexter's heart?
No.
And I know that we were talking about obstructions mostly in the GI tract, but were there any obstructions on Dexter's heart?
None.
Okay. I'm going to talk about the lungs now. On Dexter's lungs, were there any evidence of disease?
There's no gross evidence. So looking at them, they look very normal on incision of them. So cutting through each of those organs, sometimes there can be items within them. And so by cutting, we get a more thorough assessment than just looking at them. And there was no abnormality as well.
And that's for the disease, right?
Yes.
And then was there any evidence of any masses in Dexter's lungs?
None.
Any evidence of obstructions in Dexter's lungs? No. Okay, moving on to his windpipe. What you were able to examine from his windpipe, was there any evidence of disease on his windpipe?
No.
Any evidence of masses on his windpipe?
No.
Any obstructions on his windpipe?
No.
Moving on to Dexter's liver. Was there any evidence of disease on Dexter's liver?
No.
Any evidence of any masses on Dexter's liver?
No.
The stomach. Any evidence of disease on Dexter's stomach?
No.
Any evidence of masses on Dexter's stomach?
No.
Any obstructions in Dexter's stomach?
No.
On the intestines, we've been talking about the obstructions, but was there any evidence of disease within his intestines, small or large?
No.
Was there any evidence of masses in his intestines?
No.
Was there any evidence of obstructions in his intestines?
No.
His kidneys. Any evidence of disease on his kidneys?
Grossly looking at them, they appeared normal.
Any evidence of masses on his kidneys?
No.
Any obstructions in any of the pipes in the kidneys?
No.
His bladder. Any evidence of disease on his bladder?
No.
Any evidence of masses on his bladder?
No.
Any evidence of obstructions on his bladder?
No.
Now, after that internal examination, is that the end of your necropsy?
Collecting, yes, after internal examination, it is correct. My last part is always to remove the skull, specifically the brain. But given that the brain was not present, the head was not present in this case, that was not performed.
Your Honor, before I go into this next line of questioning that we approach. Dr. Perlman, we've been talking about everything sort of from the neck down at this point. I want to now talk about the neck and what you were able to review and opinions you were able to reach about Dexter's neck. So are you aware of an osteology report that was conducted in this case?
I am.
Do you know who conducted that examination and who prepared that report?
Yes.
Who is that person?
Amanda Fish.
Now, did you review Amanda Fitch's report?
I did.
Did you talk with Amanda Fitch about her opinions that were contained in that report?
I did.
I'm going to talk with you a little bit about some of the stuff that was found or that you tested that is in your opinion as well as her opinion. Now, do we know how many times, do we know how the head became detached?
Yes.
Well, do we have an opinion on how the head became detached?
Yes.
And what's your opinion based on your review of Ms. Fitch's report as well as your own review of the data in this case? What's your opinion on how the head became detached in this case?
Same objection, Your Honor.
My opinion is that a sharp force object, such as a knife, was utilized to decapitate Dexter. Specifically looking when I was performing the pelt removal or the skin removal, the margins of the skin that was left on that cervical or neck portion were very sharp and fine, and there were cut hairs, which to me indicates that a knife or something sharp lined that area that caused the hair to break, that like long hair to break in the middle. So I have cut hairs, like blunted ends of hairs. So to me, that's not another animal or anything like that. That is a sharp force trauma causing that. There were 2 skin tags that had incisions through them, not lacerations where there's a tear, but an incision from a sharp object, one on the lower side of the neck and one at the top side of the neck. So prior to osteological evaluation, that was my top differential, my top thought as to how, if that this was moving forward in the direction of a decapitation. Additionally, there were very fine fragments on x-ray and of the neck that was remaining, which again, if it had been a bludgeon to death or used an axe of sorts, there would be more crushing of the bones there than fine bones that were shattered from a knife or something sharp. In addition to reviewing Amanda Fitch's report, she also concluded that it was most likely
Just have your opinion.
Sure. My personal opinion as well is that is that a machete or a meat cleaver was utilized to decapitate the head based on fragmentation of the bone.
Now, Dr. Perlman, and I'm not trying to make light of this situation, but I have to ask, is a machete or a meat cleaver, is that something that presumably only a human can do and hold on to and make those actions?
Correct. There's no tooth marks. There's no, it's perfect. There's striations or lines within the bone's cut portion that are very uniform. So it is impossible for a dog to, or another animal to gnaw on that neck, causing that based on the uniform lines that are on the bone under the magnifying glass.
And that brought me to my next question. So is there any evidence that another animal did this to Dexter?
None.
And earlier, just now you were mentioning marks on the bones in this case. Do you have the bones in this case?
I do.
You have permission to approach the witness. Well, she already got the evidence. Are they contained in that brown paper bag?
Yes.
Are those bones in the same or substantially the same condition as whenever you received them, whenever Dexter's body came in?
The bones are just of C2, so the second cervical vertebrae, and C3, which are the 2 that had the most trauma to them. So Amanda and I collected the bones to ensure that I didn't inflict any type of trauma in the handling of the bones to remove them for Amanda. So the neck was attached to the body. Amanda did not need the body. So together we worked together to remove the part that was not damaged and hand it to her for osteological evaluation. And these are in that position.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, in that bag, there's the C2 and the C3?
Correct.
And are those in the same or substantially the same condition as whenever Ms. Fitch and you conducted your examination?
Correct.
Your Honor, the state offers an evidence. Well, it's not pre-marked yet. May I have a brief moment with Madam Clerk? Yes.
When he says kind of a brief moment with Madam Court, I just think, where they going? They're getting a hotel room together or something? I can't now fucking stop looking, Lady Di, at her eyes. You're such a mofo. I can't stop looking at her eyes. Amy, lovely to see you, my darling. I hope it goes well, everything. Then he says, yep, Sunday and one Monday. Oh, I thought it was tomorrow. There you go, Den. Big bad Den. Thank you, Lisa. Hit that like button. Thank you, my darling.
Offers what's pre-marked for identification as States Exhibit 13 into evidence as States Exhibit 13.
Can I take a look at the back?
Yes, sir.
Fucking eyes.
Sure. Not a problem. Thank you.
Is she crossing her eyes now?
Do you have finer scissors by any chance? There's just
Finer scissors.
I see.
So it's the left one as we look at it. Oh, tomorrow then. It's happy days. A fucking lazy die. I can't see.
Mark, and Your Honor, permission to have the witness step. Is it okay if we can and how they would appear on Dexter's body?
Sure.
Oh.
These are the vertebrae that were not traumatized, so they were lower on the neck than the traumatized area. So this is what they should look like. This is the top line here, and the head would be in this direction. So this is what they generally should be looking like without any evidence of trauma. Here we have each of these notice our notation of where there were 4 impacts points of impact injury that caused the bone to shear or break off from that sharp force trauma of the machete or of the meat cleaver. And so with that, there is very delicate Play-Doh type that keeps them together to recreate how they should look. So right along here, we have impact number 3, caused that fracture through here. And just to give you an idea, the spinal cord is right there. Coming out of the side of these areas right here would be where nerves are for the dogs to go to, the nerves that go to the front of the dog. These would come from right here, the nerves come down and go in through the leg into that neck area. So there would be impact to the dog's front legs with 2 of these injuries. Then again, this is where that spine would go through. Additionally, we have the abscess. So you can see right here that we have this pointy piece, right? And it's missing from here because it's literally been chopped off with some type of sharp object, either the knife or the machete. So this is C3, so that means it's the 3rd cervical spine. This is cervical spine number 2. And so this is a big bone that sits right here. We have a prominent bone there as well. This is the top of the bone. This is where we would feel like when you pet a dog, you feel that a little bit of that bone prominence there. And what we can see here is this side is normal here, and that's the dog's left side, and the right side is completely sheared off from machete marks, or cut off, not sheared off. And so there is absolutely trauma to the central nervous system, or the spinal cord. In addition to that, we can see multiple other cut marks to other areas of that dog, which occurred at different time periods. This is the result of 4 sharp force trauma wounds to the right underside of the neck in this region. So this is the underside of the neck, right here. So this is the top, and it's the head sits right here with the skull with one little bone here. And so the underside and off to that right side is just completely shot. So we would expect there to be symmetries between both sides, and this whole side is absent, which is where we see fragmentation of the bone that just broke off from that sharp force trauma. In addition to that, there were parts of the skeleton that Amanda was unable to recreate, given that they're so small and shattered. It's impossible. It is not feasible to recreate that and piece them back together. And again, this is the result of 4 episodes, or 4 points of impact from sharp force trauma. We are unable to identify what order they came in. However, there are a few points where it is anticipated that impact number 4, where we see right here, the complete shearing, the sharp force trauma of that right side would have resulted in full decapitation. That logically, that would make sense that it's the last cut done, because that would render the head to essentially fall off.
So doctor, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I need to ask you a question at some point. So we're talking about 4 separate impacts, is that correct? Are you able to give an opinion on what the first impact was?
Yes, there is something that we call a hesitation mark. And so what can happen is it can occur where somebody goes to chop something and it's harder than what they think, or their angle is off. So they go and chop or use a sharp force trauma, and they will chop down, and it's harder. So it creates a notch. It's a hesitation. So they were thinking about it, they tried, and then something happened where there was hesitancy there, or they needed more force than what they thought they had, and it creates a notch mark. And so we absolutely have a notch on this.
Do you think it'd be helpful to put that under the document camera to maybe show it a little bit more close? Yeah, so just right over here. So, Dr. Bowman, you're talking about a hesitation mark. That's what we're talking about now. So if you're able to identify that hesitation mark and put it up on the screen for the members of the jury.
Correct. So what we can see, this is interesting to use. Yeah, that's interesting. So that we can see.
And then would it help once you have it there to point it out on the screen?
Yes, let me. So what we can see are a few things here. These are a form of the striations that we can see that they're very uniform. So if you have a dog at home or a cat at home and they're chomping on something, there won't really be a rhyme or reason to looking at the bone to how that looks under the microscope. And here we can see that it's very uniform direction, which to me means that it's a sharp force, like a knife or a machete or a meat cleaver. And then we can see here there's a notch mark, which can also, and there's the beginning of one as well, which is that sharp force trauma, and then there's some hesitancy, or they didn't come hard enough to chop, that it leaves a dent of sorts in a check mark, but it doesn't necessarily cut all the way through.
And so is it your opinion that that's the first impact?
That is suspected, yes.
Okay. And then we were talking about 4 impacts. Are you able to determine, so you said you suspect that that's the first one. Are you able to say for 100% certain that that's the first one?
No.
What about impacts 2, 3, and 4?
I'm unable to identify what order they came in. Again, speculating most likely the last one, impact 4, is the one that sheared that whole side off and would have severed the head as well as the spinal cord. And again, that is a speculation.
Dr. Perlman, could impact 1 have paralyzed Dexter or otherwise incapacitated him?
Potentially, if it were hitting nerves that are coming out and down into those front legs.
No, here's your first witness. Yeah. Let me give these back to you. What was your opinion on when those cuts happened, those 4 impacts happened during Dexter's life?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
So as far as when Dexter was alive versus when Dexter was dead, did you have an opinion on when those cuts happened?
I'm unable to make that determination.
Okay. Let me just check something really quick. Dexter's life before he got to you. Did you have an opportunity to review Dexter's medical records from the animal shelter?
I did.
All right. Does that include a photograph of Dexter, the adoption photograph?
I believe so.
Our permission to publish States Exhibit 1? That you received?
I believe so, yes.
Did you have a chance to review Dexter's medical records from the animal shelter?
Yes.
As far as you know, was he up to date on all of his vaccinations?
Yes.
Was he heartworm negative?
Correct. He did not have heartworms.
Was he currently in the process of being treated for any other medical issues?
Yes.
What was that medical issue?
He was being treated for a respiratory illness called kennel cough.
Can you explain to members of the jury what the human version of kennel cough is?
Sure. It's essentially usually a viral component that can come about in times of stress. So oftentimes dogs in animal shelters, there is really, really good prognosis for treatment of that. It's essentially a snotty nose from kindergarten class. It's just a viral snotty nose kind of.
Is that something that's typically fatal to dogs?
No.
And then again, silly question, is a dog a domestic animal?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I have no further questions at this time.
Osteology is the study of the bones.
Correct.
And is that the testimony that you were just now giving regarding the striations and cut marks on the vertebrae?
Correct.
That's for an osteologist.
Incorrect. There, I have training and I have taken courses where I evaluate bones and feel comfortable, particularly in this scenario, in rendering the opinion of a machete or a meat cleaver based on the striations of bones.
You would agree with me that an osteological examination is very different from a forensic type of examination, which is the one that you performed?
It is a subdivision of forensic evaluation, yes.
There was no toxicology done?
Correct.
That would be important for a forensic examination?
It depends, not for every case.
A toxicology examination or report or analysis, if you will, would show if there was any ingestion of any poisons or any sort of chemicals that may have affected this dog's life.
Potentially.
And that was never ordered.
It was collected, it was not submitted, correct.
So we can't conclusively determine if this dog in question died by some toxic substance.
Not gross examination, and again, those samples weren't submitted, so it's possible.
Now, you've been saying gross a lot. I know it doesn't mean what we usually refer to it, but can you explain to the jury what you mean by gross?
Sure, I apologize for that. Grossly means when I'm looking at something, so with my eyes, not with a microscope or any special utilization of a tool.
And there was no histopathology examinations done or analysis.
Correct.
And you never went to the scene of the crime, the scene where the body was found.
Correct.
You would agree with me that as part of a forensic examination, that would be very important to you.
It can be helpful.
You would determine the surroundings, any other sort of environmental factor that may have affected this dog.
Potentially, yeah. Yes.
You did not have that opportunity.
Correct.
So we have no toxicology analysis. You weren't at the scene where the dog was found, and you did no histopathological exam.
Correct.
Okay. You gave an opinion that we are unable to determine cause of death because we do not have the actual head of us.
Correct.
I know that's how you qualify it, but at the end of the day, you cannot determine cause of death.
Without the head, that's correct.
And along those lines, you cannot determine that my client is the one that did this.
I That is outside my scope as to say who did what unless there is DNA evidence found on the animal.
And there was no DNA found on the animal.
Correct.
I believe, were you involved in any submission of DNA found on the animal?
No.
So bringing you back to my question, you did not render an opinion my client did this.
Correct.
There's no way to determine that.
In my position, in my field, that's correct.
I'm going to re-ask the question. You can't tell this jury that my client did this.
Correct. That is not in my normal job description.
Okay. Regardless of that, you can't.
Correct.
Okay. You didn't review any police reports in this case, correct?
I reviewed a statement in my medical record stated, I believe that it was information from a report from the crime scene, from the area that the Dexter's remains were found.
Did you note anything of importance in that report?
Nothing that I can recall.
Does an osteologist by the name of Amanda Fitch sound familiar to you?
Yes.
She generated a report in this case?
She did.
You generated your own report with your own opinions.
Correct.
And those opinions we all know, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Before rendering that opinion, you never had the opportunity or the benefit of reviewing her report before making that opinion, correct?
That is incorrect, and I misspoke during the deposition.
Well, okay. You and I had a chance to speak before along with the state attorney, correct? Is that what you're referring to?
That is correct.
Okay. So you had a chance to review Amanda Fitch's report before rendering your opinion?
I did.
Okay. And that prior, you had advised the contrary at an earlier point in time?
Correct.
Okay. And what I mean by that is that you had referenced under oath that you did not review her report when rendering your opinion.
Correct.
And that's incorrect. Now you're clarifying it.
In my medical report, it references Amanda Fitch's osteological report, which would also indicate that I did in fact review her report before I published my final report.
Now, just so we're all clear, did you have a chance to speak with her before rendering your report, generating your report?
I did.
Now, you said you've testified before in these types of cases, correct?
Yes.
We're talking about aggravated animal cruelty cases?
Yes.
As a forensic veterinarian, you agree that you may have to, your job is part of fact-finding and assisting the trial fact in cases just like the one we're in right now.
I agree.
So forgive me for being just general. You're not in a lab somewhere. You're in the courtroom and you're assisting law enforcement, correct?
Incorrect.
Okay, explain.
My position as a forensic veterinarian is very much in the lab. So we have a necropsy lab and facility in Gainesville, Florida. We work under at the request of law enforcement so that any remains can be sent from throughout the United States to send to us for a forensic necropsy or autopsy, in which case we'll move forward with processing those remains. In addition to doing that, we also perform live animal forensic exams and an evaluation on crime scenes if we're asked to assist on crime scenes. Additionally, our team assists with educating veterinary students, veterinarians, law enforcement, prosecutors, quite a few disciplines, social workers. So there's multiple facets to my position other than just being in a courtroom.
Now, as part of those multiple assets, are you aware of the type of the accusations in this case, the type of charge that we're dealing with?
Yes.
Do you agree that in a case like this, you haven't given an opinion, that there has to be some sort of intentional act committed on an animal in question?
I feel uncomfortable answering that question because I think it gets more into legality versus the evidence of pain and suffering, which is where my veterinary expertise comes in play. So with that in mind, I do think that if Dexter were alive, he would have experienced severe pain and suffering for the infliction of those injuries.
Now, that's if he was alive, correct?
Correct.
Your opinion is that he was deceased prior to this infliction.
Because of his stage of decomposition, I'm unable to draw that conclusion.
Draw the conclusion that, well, let's look at your report. Would you agree with me that Dexter's remains are most consistent with being deceased prior to decapitation?
That is absolutely possible.
Well, I'm not asking if it's possible. I'm actually looking at your report.
Sure.
Looking at your report, fresh recollection. Is it your testimony? Is it your testimony that Dexter's remains are not consistent with being deceased prior to decapitation?
I believe that with the incorporation of restraint in manual or physical restraint, that it's possible that he could have been alive or incapacitated for those injuries to take place. He would have had to be in a still position but not necessarily deceased. I understand that I previously published that in my paper, but and in thinking through this case, it's also possible that he was hogtied or restrained in some capacity, which would have rendered him unable to move away from those type of trauma to his neck.
May I approach the witness?
Sure.
Let the record reflect that I've made a brief mark on the backside of the paper identifying this as defendant being pre-marked at the defendant's exhibit 2. May I approach the witness? I place before you what has been pre-marked for identification as defendant's exhibit 2. Can you look through that those papers, that document, and let me know when you've had a chance to review it?
Yes,
Do you recognize what's in front of you?
I do.
How do you recognize it?
This is a report that I have published.
Is this the only report that you've published in this case?
Correct.
Does it appear to be a fair and accurate depiction and representation of the report that you authored in this case?
Yes.
The defense offers in evidence what has been pre-marked for identification as defendant's exhibit 2.
Objection to hearsay. Sustained.
Your Honor, may I be heard?
Sure. How much more do you have for this witness?
I got to take a look at my notes, maybe about 10, 15 minutes.
Okay. Thank you. Can you take the jury out, please? Yes, sir. Please, Jill, place your pad on the seat for me.
Okay, they're done for the day. So the plan now is I'm going to close this down and go over. There's been a lot of action. I'll explain it in the Zachary trial. I'll explain it there. There's been a few questions and stuff like that. So I'll end this. You get zoomed over to the other stream. So for those of you not coming over, that's fine. Hopefully join us tomorrow, 9:45 Eastern, 2:45 UK time, and we'll come back and try to get justice for Dexter. All right, everyone, let's get over watching the closings.